Hello everyone. We are gonna read Harry Potter because I need to learn how to write. So I need to learn how to read. Cake. Anyway, now we're gonna read. All right, I'm gonna say this now. I'm very slow. Okay, so there might be I'm not native English. Okay, so I might have a bit of trouble, but apparently, right, this is a good way to start reading. All right, I watched the movies, so it's fine. I like them. So it's it's time I read. All right. I found this site. Okay, wait, what? For Jessica, who loves stories, for Ain, who loved them too, and for D, who heard this one first. D? Who the fuck is D? Oh, there's a little illustration. That's Harry. Okay. The Boy Who Lived, Chapter 1. Oh, wow. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of Number 4 Private Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. Oh well, you're welcome. They were the last people you expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Okay. I understood that. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. Drilling. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. Very epic. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had a nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. Oh, okay, so we have descriptions of how they look like. So basically, Popuko and Pipimi, okay? The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion, there was no finer boy anywhere. That's really cute. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret, and their greatest fear was that somebody will discover it. Oh. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Oh. Mrs. Potter and Mrs. Dursley's sister. But they hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister, because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as un-Dursley-ish as it was possible to be. Okay, I am understanding this. The Dursleys shuddered to think that the neighbors... The Dursleys shuddered. Okay, I know what that means. Okay, to think what the neighbors will say if the Potters arrived in the street. I don't know. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they had never seen him. Oh yeah, I have music. Oh, I'm very stupid. Wait a minute, let me play some music. There you go. Silly me. Just my... Okay. There's someone in... Harry se está agachando a todos. Maybe. Okay. That video is so old. Anyway. Okay, we are here. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they had never seen him. This boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dudley mixing with a child like that. What the hell, racist? When Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull, grey Tuesday, our story starts. There was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest that strange and mysterious things will soon be happening all over the country. Okay, I understood that. Mr. Dursley hummed as he picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mrs. Dursley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his high chair. Okay, I get that. Okay, so they just like doing their thing. He's getting ready for work, and then the mom is Mrs. Dursley is just placing a baby or a little kid on a high chair. Okay. See. None of them noticed a large, tawny owl flutter past the window. Alright. At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed, because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the walls. "Little tyke," chortled Mr. Dursley as he left the house. Little tyke? What does that even mean? He got into his car and backed out of number 4's drive. Right, number 4 has to be like the house, I think. Right? Yeah, it says Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 private drive. Yeah, that has to be the fucking... Yeah. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something peculiar. A cat reading a map. Gah? For a second, Mr. Dursley didn't realize what he had seen. Then he jerked his head around to look again. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Private Drive, but there wasn't a map in sight. What could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of the light. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. It stared back. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the sign that said Private Drive. No, looking at the sign. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. As he drove toward town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills he was hoping to get that day. Just drills? But on the edge of town, drills were driven out of his mind by something else. As he sat in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldn't help noticing that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in cloaks. Oh, Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. The get-ups he saw in young people. He supposed this was some stupid new fashion. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel and his eyes fell on a huddle of these weirdos standing quite close by. Hey, this is pretty easy to read, you know? I'm not having any trouble here. They were whispering excitedly together. Mr. Dursley was enraged to see that a couple of them weren't young at all. Why? That man had to be older than he was and wearing an emerald green cloak. The nerve of him. But then it struck Mr. Dursley that this was probably some silly stunt. These people are obviously collecting for something. Yes, that will be it. The traffic moved on. A few minutes later, Mr. Dursley arrived in the groaning parking lot. Okay. His mind back on drills. Okay. Mr. Dursley always sat with his back to the window in his office on the 9th floor. Okay. If he hadn't, he might have found it harder to concentrate on drills that morning. He didn't see the owls swooping past in broad daylight, though people down in the street did. Wait a minute. What the fuck? This song sounds exactly the same as one of the soundtracks in The Dog Island. What the fuck? Not complaining, I like it. Alright. Okay. Okay, I know where we are. Okay. He didn't see the owl swooping past in broad daylight, though people down in the street did. They pointed and gazed open-mouthed as owl after owl sped overhead. Most of them had never seen an owl even at night time. Mr. Dursley, however, had a perfectly normal, owl-free morning. He yelled at 5 different people, he made several important telephone calls, and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime, when he thought he'd stretch his legs and walk across the road to buy himself a bun from the bakery. Yo, I like bun. Bruno. Okay, so what I get for now is that we get a lot of story for the Dursleys. Like, the movies just start right away, you know, with Potter, they're like being abused, whatever. He forgotten all about the people in clothes until he passed a group of them next to the bakers. He eyed them angrily as he passed. He didn't know why, but they made him uneasy. This bunch were whispering excitedly too, and he couldn't see a single collecting tin. It was on his way back past them, clutching a large donut in a bag, that he caught a few words of what they were saying. The Potters. That's right, that's what I heard. Yes, their son, Harry. Mr. Dursley stopped dead. Fear flooded him. He looked back at the whispers as if he wanted to say something to them, but thought better of it. He dashed back across the road, hurried up to his office, snapped at his secretary not to disturb him, seized his telephone, and had almost finished dialing his home number when he changed his mind. He put the receiver back down and stroked his mustache, thinking. No, he was being stupid. Potter wasn't such an unusual name. He was sure there were lots of people called Potter who had a son called Harry. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure his nephew was called Harry. He had never seen the boy. It may have been Harvey or Harold. There was no point in worrying Mrs. Dursley. She always got so upset at any mention of her sister. He didn't blame her. If he had a sister like that. But all the same, those people in cloaks. He found it a lot harder to concentrate on drills that afternoon, and when he left the building at 5 o'clock, he was still so worried that he walked straight into someone just outside the door. Sorry, he grunted, as the tiny old man stumbled and almost fell. It was a few seconds before Mr. Dursley realized that the man was wearing a violet cloak. He didn't seem at all upset at being almost knocked to the ground. On the contrary, his face split into a wide smile, and he said in a squeaky voice that made passerby stare. Don't be sorry, my dear sir, for nothing could upset me today. Rejoice, for you know who has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy day. What? And the old man hugged Mr. Dursley around the middle and walked off. Mr. Dursley stood rooted to the spot. He had been hugged by a complete stranger. He also thought he had been called a muggle, whatever that was. He was rattled. He hurried to his car and set off for home, hoping he was imagining things, which he had never hoped before, because he didn't approve of imagination. That's like... this is like a very weird character. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was the tabby cat he spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one. It had the same marking around its eyes. Shoo, said Mr. Dursley loudly. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a stern look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered, trying to pull himself together. He let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had a nice normal day. She told him over dinner all about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word. Won't. Mr. Dursley tried to act normally. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. And finally, bird watchers everywhere had reported that the nation's owls had been behaving very unusually today. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Oh. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newscaster, The newscaster allowed himself a grin. Most mysterious, and now, over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Well, Ted, said the weatherman, I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting oddly today. Beavers as far apart as Kent, Yorkshire, and Dundee have been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain I promised yesterday, they had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire night early. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise a wet night tonight. A wet night tonight. Mr. Dursley was frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain, owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervously. Petunia, dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? As he had expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After all, they normally pretended she didn't have a sister. "No," she said sharply. "Why?" "Funny stuff in the news," Mr. Dursley mumbled. "Owls, shooting stars, and there were a lot of funny-looking people in town today." "So?" snapped Mrs. Dursley. "Well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with, her crowd." Mrs. Dursley sipped her tea through pursed lips. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he dared tell her he'd heard the name Potter. He decided he didn't dare. Oh wait, there's messages. Bob. Hi. Hello. Instead, he said, as casually as he could, "Their son. He'd be about Dudley's age now, wouldn't he?" "I suppose so," said Mrs. Dursley stiffly. "What's his name again? Howard, isn't it?" "Harry. Nasty, common name, if you ask me." "Oh, yes," said Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. "Yes, I quite agree. Harry is a normal name." Also, funny enough, 2 days ago I had a dream that I was traveling to the past to save Kanye West from killing himself before he released Dark Twisted Fantasy, and I met Daniel Radcliffe. He was my best friend in the moment. I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, just make sure not to let anyone take advantage of you, my guy." And he was like, "Yeah, you're right." you know. And with Kanye, it was like I was trying to reach him a lot, but he was like going here and there all the time. He was like on a bunch of shit, and I'm there like, okay, and in a moment I said, "I heard in Japan they won't harass you as much, so maybe try going there." And he was like, "Yeah, you're right." It was fucking weird. It was a weird dream, but it was fun. It was like the world but older. It was weird, but I had for some reason in this dream, my phone had the stuff that I have at the moment, so I could listen to Kanye music, from the present and other shit, and be like, "Oh, if only you knew what you're gonna make it later." Okay, let's keep reading. He didn't say another word on the subject as they went upstairs to bed. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley crept to the bedroom window and peered down into the front garden. The cat was still there. It was staring down Privet Drive, as though it were waiting for something. Was he imagining things? Could all this have anything to do with the Potters? If it did, if it got out that they were related to a pair of, well, he didn't think he could bear it. So for now, the book is not telling us they're wizards and shit like that. They're just saying it's weird stuff happening. And I like that. I like that it's building up, The Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over in his mind. His last comforting thought, before he fell asleep, was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him and Mrs. Dursley. The Potters knew very well that he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. It couldn't affect them. How very wrong he was. If only he knew. Yeah, I'm actually, this is an easy read. It's good. I never read books, I'm gonna be honest with you. Mr. Dursley may have been drifted into an uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing no sign of sleepiness. It was sitting as still as a statue. This music is loud. Shut the fuck up. How do I make it lower? Let me get my mic. There you go. Sorry about that. Just felt it was a little loud. How very wrong he was. Mr. Dursley may have been drifted into an uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing no sign of sleepiness. It was sitting as still as a statue, its eyes fixed unblinkingly on the far corner of Privet Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when a car door slammed on the next street, nor when two owls swooped overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat moved at all. A man appeared in the corner the cat had been watching. appeared so suddenly and silently you'd have thought he'd just popped out of the ground. The cat's tail twitched and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever been seen on Privet Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old. Judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his belt, he was wearing long robes, a purple cloak that swept the ground, and high-heeled, buckled boots. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Oh, nice. Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realize that he had just arrived in a street where everything from his name to his boots was unwelcome. He was busy rummaging in his cloak, looking for something, but he didn't seem to realize he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly at the cat, which was still staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. He chuckled and muttered, "I should have known." He found what he was looking for in his inside pocket. It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flicked it open, held it up in the air, and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out with a little pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered in the darkness. 12 times he clicked the pot outer, until the only lights left on the whole street were 2 tiny pinpricks in the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching him. Oh yeah, so the thing where Dumbledore has that thing where he can like gather light and then yeah, okay. If anyone looked out of their window now, even beady-eyed Mrs. Dursley, they wouldn't be able to see anything that was happening down on the pavement. Dumbledore slipped the pot outer bag inside his cloak and set off down the street toward Dumbledore slipped the pot outer bag inside his cloak and set off down the street toward number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. "Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses exactly the shape of the markings the cat had around its eyes. She, too, was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly." "You'd be stiff if you'd been sitting on a brick wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day? But you could have been celebrating. Must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh yes, everyone's celebrating all night. All right. Wait. Oh yes, everyone's celebrating, all right," she said impatiently. "You think they'd be a bit more careful, but no. Even the Muggles have noticed something's going on. It was on their news." She jerked her head back at the Dursleys' dark living room window. "I heard it. Flocks of owls, shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to notice something. Shooting stars down in Kent. I'll bet that was the Dallas Diggle. He never had much sense." "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We had precious little to celebrate for 11 years. "I know that," said Professor McGonagall irritably. "But there's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless. But on the streets, in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothes, swapping rumors." She threw a sharp, sideways glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something, but he didn't, so she went on. "A fine thing it will be if, on the very day you-know-who seems to have disappeared at last, the Muggles found out about us all. I suppose he really has gone, Dumbledore." "It certainly seems so," said Dumbledore. "We have much to be thankful for. Wait. It certainly seems so," said Dumbledore. "We have much to be thankful for. Will you care for a lemon drop?" Dialogue here is good. I like it. A what? A what? A lemon drop. They're a kind of Muggle sweet I'm rather fond of. "No, thank you," said Professor McGonagall coldly. as though she didn't think this was the moment for lemon drops. As I say, even if you-know-who has gone, my dear professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name? All this you-know-who nonsense. For 11 years I have been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort. Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was unsticking 2 lemon drops, seemed not to notice. You'll get so confusing if we keep saying you-know-who. I have never seen any reason to be frightened of saying Voldemort's name. Oh, I had never seen any reason to be frightened of saying the N-word. I know you haven't, said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring. But you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one you-know-who. All right, Voldemort was frightened of. You flatter me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort's had powers I will never have. Only because you're too, well, novel to use them. It's lucky it's dark. I haven't blushed so much since Madame Pomfrey told me she liked my new earmuffs. Professor McGonagall shot a sharp look at Dumbledore and said, The elves are nothing next to the rumors that are flying around. You know what everyone's saying? About why he's disappeared? And what finally stopped him? It seemed that Professor McGonagall had reached the point she was most anxious to discuss. The real reason she had been waiting on a cold hard wall all day. For neither as a cat nor as a woman had she fixed Dumbledore with such a piercing stare as she did now. It was plain that whatever everyone was saying, she was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was choosing another lemon drop and did not answer. What they're saying, she pressed on, is that last night Voldemort turned up in Godric's Hollow. He went to find the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter are that they're dead. Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped. Lily and James. I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Oh, Albus. Dumbledore reached out and patted her on the shoulder. I know, he said heavily. Professor McGonagall's voice trembled as she went on. That's not all. They're saying he tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry, but he couldn't. He couldn't kill that little boy. No one knows why or how, but they're saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's power somehow broke, and that's why he's gone. Dumbledore nodded glumly. It's true? Faltered Professor McGonagall. After all he's done, all the people he's killed, he couldn't kill a little boy. It's just astounding, of all the things to stop him. But how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess, said Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes beneath her spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff, and he took a golden watch from his pocket and examined it. It was a very odd watch. It had 12 hands but no numbers. Instead, little planets were moving around the edge. He! Ooh! Okay, I'm actually understanding this with no problem. It must have made sense to Dumbledore, though, because he put it back in his pocket and said, Hagrid's late. I suppose it was he who told you I'd be here, by the way. Yes, said Professor McGonagall. And I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you're here, of all places? I come to bring Harry to his aunt and uncle. They're the only family... He has left now. You can't mean the people who live here, cried Professor McGonagall, jumping to their feet and pointing at number 4. Dumbledore, you can't. I've been watching them all day. You couldn't find 2 people who are less like us. And they got this son. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up to the street, screaming for sweets. Harry Potter, come and live here. It's the best place for him, said Dumbledore firmly. His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he's older. I've written them a letter. A letter? Repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore, you think you can explain all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name. Wait, what? They actually predicted this shit. Exactly, said Dumbledore, looking very seriously over the tip of his half-moon glasses. It will be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous because he can walk and talk. famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be growing up away from all that until he's ready to take it? Oh. He wants to make this guy humble. Makes sense. I understand. Yeah. Makes sense. Professor McGonagall opened her mouth, changed her mind, swallowed, and then said, Yes, you're right, of course. But how is the boy getting here, Dumbledore? She eyed his cloak suddenly as though she thought he might be hiding Harry underneath it. Hagrid is bringing him. You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? I will trust Hagrid with my life, said Dumbledore. I'm not saying his heart isn't in the right place, said Professor McGonagall grudgingly. But you can't pretend he's not careless. He does tend to... What was that? A low rumbling sound had broken the silence around them. It grew steadily louder as they looked up and down the street for some sign of a headlight. It swelled to a roar as they both looked up at the sky, and a huge motorcycle fell out of the air and landed on the road in front of them. If the motorcycle was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting astride it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man, and had at least 5 times as wide. Jesus. Oh, and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild. Long tangles of bushy black hair and beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. In his vast muscular arms he was holding a bundle of blankets. Hagrid, said Dumbledore, sounding relieved. At last. And where did you get that motorcycle? Borrow it, Professor Dumbledore, sir, said the giant, climbing carefully off the motorcycle as he spoke. Young Sirius Black lent it to me. I got him, sir. No problems. Were there? No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right before the muggles started swarming around. He fell asleep as we was flying over Bristol. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent forward over the bundle of blankets. Inside, just visible, was a baby boy, fast asleep. That's cute. Under a tuft of jet black hair over his forehead, they could see a curiously shaped cut, like a bolt of lightning. Is that where? Whispered Professor McGonagall. Yes, said Dumbledore. He'll have that scar forever. Can you do something about it, Dumbledore? Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one myself above my left knee that is a perfect map of the London Underground. What? Well, give him here, Hagrid. Better get this over with. Wait, what the fuck? He has a scar on... Wait, what? I mean, sure. I wish you imagine Harry, instead of having a bold, he has the fucking S. The middle school S. The cool S. Dumbledore took Harry in his arms and turned toward the Dursleys' house. Could I say goodbye to him, sir? Asked Hagrid. He bent his great shaggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy, whiskery kiss. Then, suddenly, Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. Shh, hissed Professor McGonagall. You'll wake the muggles. Sorry, sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large, spotted handkerchief and burying his face in it. But I can't stand it. Lily and James did, and poor little Harry off there live with muggles. Yes, it's all very sad, but get a grip on yourself, Hagrid, or we'll be found, Professor McGonagall whispered, patting Hagrid gingerly on the arm as Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. He laid Harry gently on the doorstep, took a letter out of his cloak, tucked it inside Harry's blankets, and then came back to the other two. For a full minute the three of them stood and looked at the little bundle. Hagrid's shoulders shook. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously, and the twinkling light that usually shone from Dumbledore's eyes seemed to have gone out. Well, said Dumbledore finally, that's that. We've no business staying here. We may as well go and join the celebrations. Yeah, said Hagrid in a very muffled voice. I best get this bike away. Good night. Good night. Professor McGonagall. Professor Dumbledore, sir. Wiping his streaming eyes on his jacket sleeve. Harry zoomed himself into the motorcycle and kicked the engine into life. With a roar, it rose into the air and off into the night. Broom! He just went away. I shall see you soon, I expect, Professor McGonagall, said Dumbledore, nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew her nose in reply. Dumbledore turned and walked back down the street. On the corner he stopped and took out the silver powder. He clicked it once, and 12 balls of light sped back to their street lamps so that Privet Drive glowed suddenly orange, and he could make out a tabby cat slinking around the corner at the other end of the street. He could just see the bundle of blankets on the step of number 4. Good luck, Harry, he murmured. He turned on his heel, and with a swish of his cloak, he was gone. Whoosh! Alright, he was gone, alright? A breeze ruffled the neat hedges of Privet Drive, which lay silent and tidy under the inky sky. The very last place you will expect astonishing things to happen. Harry Potter... the fucking phone sound. Harry Potter rolled over inside his blankets without waking up. One small hand closed on the letter beside him, and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he will be woken in a few hours. Time by Mrs. Dursley's scream as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles. Not that he will spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that at this very moment, people meeting in secret all over the country were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived." Yeah, that's very nice. Chapter 2, The Vanishing Lass. What is this drawing? I guess this is like a 4th grade virtual library. Yeah, this must be like a rendition of the book or something. And I think it's oh, Vanishing Lass, okay. That has to be about the snake. Nearly 10 years had passed since the Dursleys had woken up to find their nephew on the front step, but Privet Drive had hardly changed at all. The sun rose on the same tidy front gardens and lit up the brass number 4 on the Dursleys' front door. It crept into their living room. Also, 4 is my favorite number, woo! Which was almost exactly the same as it had been on the night when Mr. Dursley had seen that fateful news report about the owls. Only the photographs on the mantelpiece really showed how much time had passed. 10 years ago, there had been lots of pictures of what looked like a large pink beach ball wearing different colored bonnets. But Dudley Dursley was no longer a baby, and one of the photographs showed a large blonde boy riding his 5th bicycle on a carousel at the fair, playing a computer game with his father, being hugged and kissed by his mother. The room held no sign at all that another boy lived in the house too. Wait, he's blonde? Wait, so Dudley is blonde? Oh. Wow. Yet Harry Potter was still there, asleep at the moment, but not for long. His Aunt Petunia was awake, and it was her shrill voice that made the first noise of the day. Up, get up now. Harry woke up with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. Up, she screeched. Harry heard her walking toward the kitchen, and then the sound of the frying pan being put on the stove. He rolled onto his back and tried to remember the dream he had been having. It had been a good one. There had been a flying motorcycle in it. He had a funny feeling he had the same dream before. His aunt was back outside the door. Are you up yet? She demanded. Nearly, said Harry. Well, get a move on. I want you to look after the bacon. And don't you dare let it burn. I want everything perfect on Dotty's birthday, Harry groaned. What did you say? His aunt snapped through the door. Nothing. What the fuck is a 10-year-old taking care of bacon? Well, I mean, at least he'll know how to cook, right? Dudley's birthday. How could he have forgotten? Harry got slowly out of bed and started looking for socks. He found a pair under his bed and, after pulling a spider off one of them, put them on. Harry was used to spiders because the cupboard under the stairs was full of them, and that was where he slept. I mean, I fit inside the cupboard, right? I would have no problem there. If I had my computer in a bed, that's it. That's all I need. And he was dressed. He went down the hall into the kitchen. The table was almost hidden beneath all Dudley's birthday presents. It looked as though Dudley had gotten the new computer he wanted, not to mention the second television and the racing bike. Exactly why Dudley wanted a racing bike was a mystery to Harry, as Dudley was very fat and hated exercise. Unless, of course, it involved punching somebody. What a nice fella! Dudley's favorite punching bag was Harry. Oh, but he couldn't often catch him. Harry didn't look it, but he was very fast. Okay, so Harry is a fast, athletic boy, I suppose. He goes like whoosh whoosh. You can't catch me, dumbass. Is that what he does? Perhaps it had something to do with living in a dark cupboard. But Harry had always been small and skinny for his age. Oh, he looked even smaller and skinnier than he really was, because all he had to wear were old clothes of Dudley's. Oh. And Dudley was about 4 times bigger than he was. Harry had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of scotch tape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. Oh my god. So his nose has to be kind of like reddish. Jesus. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead that was shaped like a bolt of lightning. Ka-chow! He had it twice. I'm just gonna ignore that. He had it as long as he could remember, and the first question he could ever remember asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had gotten it. In the car crash when your parents died, she had said, and don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for a quiet life with the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon entered the kitchen as Harry was turning over the bacon. Yay! Come here, he barked, by way of a morning greeting. About once a week, Uncle Vernon looked over the top of his newspaper and shouted that Harry needed a haircut. Harry must have had more haircuts than the rest of the boys in his class put together, but it made no difference. His hair simply grew that way, all over the place. So he has messy hair. I would like to make a drawing of Harry being like the description of Harry here, just doing bacon. All soulless, just sad. It will be a funny drawing. I'll see if I do it. Harry was frying eggs by the time Dudley arrived in the kitchen with his mother. Damn! He knows how to cook. That's pretty cool. I do that. Dudley looked a lot like Uncle Vernon. He had a large pink face, not much neck, small, watery blue eyes, and thick blonde hair that lay smoothly on his thick, fat head. Okay, Aunt Petunia often said that Dudley looked like a baby angel. Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig. Harry put the plates of egg and bacon on the table, which was difficult as there wasn't much room. Dudley, meanwhile, was counting his presents. His face fell. 36, he said, looking up at his mother and father. That's 2 less than last year. Darling, you haven't counted Auntie Marge's presents. See, it's here under the big one from Mommy and Daddy. All right, 37 then, said Dudley, going red in the face. Harry, who could see a huge Dudley tantrum coming on, began wolfing down his bacon as fast as possible in case Dudley turned the table over. Jesus. Aunt Petunia obviously scented danger too, because she said quickly, I'll buy you another 2 presents while we're out today. How's that, Pumpkin? 2 more presents. Is that alright? Dudley thought for a moment. It looked like hard work. Finally, he said slowly, so I'll have 30. 39. 39, sweetums, said Aunt Petunia. Oh, Dudley sat down heavily and grabbed the nearest parcel. Alright then. Uncle Vernon chuckled. Little Tyke wants his money's worth, just like his father. Atta boy, Dudley. He ruffled Dudley's hair. And the moment the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it, while Harry and Uncle Burnham watched Dolly unwrap the racing bike. A video. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. I'm thinking here. Harry's like, bacon, bacon. Oh, fat boy gonna get angry in the mouth. Okay, little Ty wants his money more just like his father's. Okay. The moment the telephone rang, and Aunt Petunia went to answer it, while Harry and Uncle Burnham watched Dolly unwrap the racing bike, a video camera, a remote control airplane, 16 new computer games, and a VCR. He was ripping the paper off a gold wristwatch when Aunt Petunia came back from the telephone looking both angry and worried. "Bad news, Burnham," she said. "Mrs. Fig's broken her leg. She can't take him." She jerked her head in Harry's direction. Dudley's mouth fell open in horror, but Harry's heart gave a leap. Every year on Dudley's birthday, his parents took him and a friend out for the day, to adventure parks, hamburger restaurants, or the movies. Every year, Harry was left behind with Mrs. Fig, a mad old lady who lived 2 streets away. Harry hated it there. The whole house smelled of cabbage. That's good though, I like cabbage. And Mrs. Fig made him look at the photographs of all the cats she'd ever owned. I don't see the problem. "Now what?" said Aunt Petunia, looking furiously at Harry as though he'd planned this. Harry knew he ought to feel sorry that Mrs. Fig had broken her leg. It wasn't easy when he reminded himself it would be a whole year before he had to look at Tibby's snowy Mr. Possum Tufty again. "We could phone Marge," Uncle Burnham suggested. "Let me Matilda, Burnham. She hates the boy." The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he wasn't there, or rather, as though he was something very nasty they couldn't understand them, like a slug. "What about, what's her name, your friend, Yvonne? On vacation in Majorca," snapped Aunt Petunia. "You could just leave me here," Harry put in hopefully. He'd be able to watch what he wanted on television for a change, and you need to have a go on Dudley's computer. Aunt Petunia looked as she'd just swallowed a lemon. "And come back and find the house in ruins?" she snarled. "I won't blow up the house," said Harry, but they weren't listening. "I suppose we could take him to the zoo," said Aunt Petunia slowly. "I'll leave him in the car." The guards knew he's not sitting in it alone. Dudley began to cry loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been years since he'd really cried. But he knew that if he screwed up his face and wailed, his mother would give him anything he wanted. "Dinky Duddy Dums, don't cry. Mommy won't let him spoil your special day," she cried, flinging her arms around him. "I don't want him to come," Dudley yelled between huge pretended sobs. He always spoils everything." He shot Harry a nasty grin through the gap of his mother's arms. Just then, the doorbell rang. "Oh, good Lord, they're here," said Aunt Petunia frantically, and a moment later, Dudley's best friend, Pierce Polkiss, walked in with his mother. Pierce was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms behind their backs while Dudley hid them. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. Half an hour later, Harry, who couldn't believe his luck, was sitting in the back of the Dursleys' car with Pierce and Dudley. Oh man, and the way to the zoo for the first time in his life. His aunt and uncle hadn't been able to think of anything else to do with him. But before they left, Uncle Burnham had taken Harry aside. "Alright. I'm warning you," he had said, putting his large purple face right up close to Harry's. "I'm warning you now, boy. Any funny business, anything at all, and you'll be in that cupboard from now until Christmas." "I'm not going to do anything," said Harry, honestly. But Uncle Burnham didn't believe him. No one ever did. The problem was, strange things often happened around Harry, and it was just no good telling Dursleys he didn't make them happen. Once, Aunt Petunia, tired of Harry coming back from the barber's looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short he was almost bald, except for his bangs, which she left to hide that horrible scar. Dudley had laughed himself silly at Harry, who spent a sleepless night imagining school the next day, but he was already laughed at for his baggy clothes and tapped glasses. Next morning, however, he had gotten up to find his hair exactly as it had been before, Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. He had been given a week in his cupboard for this, even though he had tried to explain that he couldn't explain how it had grown back so quickly. That's a superpower. Another time, Aunt Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old sweater of Dudley's, brown with orange puff balls. The harder she tried to pull it over his head, the smaller it seemed to become, until finally it might have fitted a hand puppet, but certainly it wouldn't fit Harry. Aunt Petunia had decided it must have shrunk in the wash, and to his great relief, Harry wasn't punished. Okay. Abuse. On the other hand, he got into terrible trouble for being found in the roof of the school kitchens. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, as much as Harry's surprised as anyone else's, there he was sitting on the chimney. The Dursleys had received a very angry letter from Harry's headmistress telling them Harry had been climbing school buildings. But all he tried to do, as he shouted at Uncle Vernon through the locked door of his cupboard, was jump behind the big trash cans outside the kitchen doors. Harry supposed that the wind must have caught him in mid-jump. How? But today, nothing was going to go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Pierce to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school, his cupboard, or Mrs. Figg's cabbage-smelling living room. Oh, while he drove, Uncle Vernon complained to Aunt Petunia. He liked to complain about things, people at work, Harry, the council, Harry, the bank, and Harry were just a few of his favorite subjects. I like how Harry is like a tumor to these people. It's funny. This morning it was motorcycles. Running around like maniacs, the young hoodlums, he said as a motorcycle overtook them. I had a dream about a motorcycle, said Harry, remembering suddenly. It was flying. Uncle Vernon nearly crashed into the car in front. He turned right around in his seat and yelled at Harry, his face like a gigantic beet with a mustache. Motorcycles don't fly! Yeah, no shit, that's why it was a dream. Dudley and Pierce sniggered. I know they don't, said Harry. It was only a dream. But he wished he hadn't said anything. There was one thing the Dursleys hated even more than his asking questions. It was his talking about anything acting in a way it shouldn't, no matter if it was in a dream or even a cartoon. They seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. Oh. It was a very sunny Saturday, and the zoo was crowded with families. The Dursley bought Dudley and Pierce large chocolate ice creams at the entrance, and then, because the smelly lady in the van had asked Harry what he wanted before they could hurry him away, they bought him a cheap lemon ice pop. Oh, nice. It wasn't bad either, Harry thought, looking as they watched a gorilla scratching his head who looked remarkably like Dudley, except that it wasn't blonde. Harry had the best morning he had in a long time. He was careful to walk a little way apart from the Dursleys so that Dudley and Pierce, who were starting to get bored with the animals by lunchtime, wouldn't fall back on their favorite hobby of hitting them. They are in the zoo restaurant, and when Dudley had a tantrum because his knickerbocker glory didn't have enough ice cream on top, Uncle Vernon bought him another one, and Harry was allowed to finish the first. Harry felt, afterward, that he should have known it was all too good to last. Oh. After lunch, they went to the reptile house. It was cool and dark in there, with lit windows all along the walls. Behind the glass, all sorts of lizards and snakes were crawling and slithering over bits of wood and stone. Dudley and Pierce wanted to see huge poisonous cobras and thick man-crushing pythons. Dudley quickly found the largest snake in the place. It could have wrapped his body twice around Uncle Brenham's car and crushed it into a trash can. But at the moment, it didn't look in the mood. In fact, it was fast asleep. Oh. Okay. Dudley stood with his nose pressed against the glass, staring at the glistening brown coils. Make it move, he whined at his father. Uncle Brenham tapped on the glass, but the snake didn't budge. Do it again, Dudley ordered. Uncle Brenham rapped the glass smartly with his knuckles, but the snake just snoozed on. This is boring, Dudley moaned. He shuffled away. Harry moved in front of the tank and looked intently at the snake. He wouldn't have been surprised if it hadn't died of boredom itself. No company except stupid people drumming their fingers from the glass, trying to disturb it all day long. It was worse than having a cupboard as a bedroom, where the only visitor was Aunt Petunia hammering on the door to wake you up. At least he got to visit the rest of the house. The snake suddenly opened its beady eyes, slowly, very slowly, then raised its head until its eyes were now level with Harry's. It winked. Gah! The snake? Harry stared. Then he looked quickly around to see if anyone was watching. They weren't. He looked back at the snake and winked too. They're like, yo, fella. The snake jerked its head towards Uncle Brenham and Dudley, then raised its eyes to the ceiling. It gave Harry a look that said quite plainly, I get that all the time. I know, Harry murmured through the glass, though he wasn't sure the snake could hear him. It must be really annoying. The snake nodded vigorously. Where do you come from anyway? Harry asked. The snake jabbed his tail at a little sign next to the glass. Harry peered at it. Boa constrictor, Brazil. Was it nice there? The boa constrictor jabbed his tail at the sign again, and Harry read on. This specimen was bred in the zoo. Oh, I see. So you've never been to Brazil. As the snake shook its head, a deafening shout behind Harry made both of them jump. Dudley! Mr. Dursley! Come and look at the snake. You won't believe what it's doing. Dudley came waddling toward them as fast as he could. Out of the way, you, he said, punching Harry in the ribs. What the fuck? Caught by surprise, Harry fell hard on the concrete floor. What came next happened so fast no one saw how it happened. 1 second, Pierce and Dudley were leaning right up close to the glass. The next, they had leapt back with howls of horror. Okay, so there's like another guy in here, basically. In the movie, it's only Dudley. Harry sat up and gasped. The glass front of the boa constrictor's tank had vanished. The great snake was uncoiling itself rapidly, slithering out into the floor. People throughout the reptile house screamed and started running for the exits. As the snake slid swiftly past him, Harry could have sworn a low, hissing voice said, Brazil, here I come. Thanks, amigo. Brazil, you are going to Brazil. Yes. The snake just said yes. The keeper of the reptile house was in shock. But the glass, he kept saying. Where did the glass go? The zoo director himself made Aunt Petunia a cup of strong, sweet tea while he apologized over and over again. Pierce and Dudley could only gibber. As far as Harry had seen, the snake hadn't done anything except snap playfully at their heels as it passed. But by the time they were all back in Uncle Burnham's car, Dudley was telling them how it had nearly bitten off his leg, while Pierce was swearing it had tried to squeeze him to death. But worst of all, for Harry at least, was Pierce calming down enough to say, Harry was talking to it, weren't you, Harry? Uncle Vernon waited until Pierce was safely out of the house before starting on Harry. He was so angry he could hardly speak. He managed to say, Go. Cupboard, stay, no meals, before he collapsed into a chair, and Aunt Petunia had to run and get him a large brandy. Harry lay in his dark cupboard much later, wishing he had a watch. He didn't know what time it was, and he couldn't be sure the Dursleys were asleep yet. Until they were, he couldn't risk sneaking into the kitchen for some food. He lived with the Dursleys almost 10 years. 10 miserable years. As long as he could remember. Ever since he'd been a baby and his parents had died in that car crash, he couldn't remember being in the car when his parents had died. Sometimes, when he strained his memory during long hours in his cupboard, he came up with a strange vision. A blinding flash of green light and a burning pain on his forehead. This, he supposed, was the crash, though he couldn't imagine where all the green light came from. He couldn't remember his parents at all. His aunt and uncle never spoke about them, and of course he was forbidden to ask questions. There were no photographs of them in the house. When he had been younger, Harry had dreamed a dream of some unknown relation coming to take him away. But it had never happened. The Dursleys were his only family. Yet, sometimes he thought, or maybe hoped, that strangers in the street seemed to know him. Very strange strangers they were, too. A tiny man in a violet top hat had bowed to him once while out shopping with Aunt Petunia and Dudley. After asking Harry furiously if he knew the man, Aunt Petunia had rushed them out of the shop without buying anything. A wild-looking old woman dressed all in green had waved merrily at him once on a bus. A bald man in a very long purple coat had actually shaken his hand in the street the other day and then walked away without a word. The weirdest thing about all these people was the way they seemed to vanish the second Harry tried to get a closer look. Harry has schizophrenia. At school, Harry had no one. Everybody knew that Dudley's gang hated that odd Harry Potter in his baggy old clothes and broken glasses, and nobody liked to disagree with Dudley's gang. So you're telling me? Yeah, this wouldn't happen in a school, from here at least. Like, if there was a gang or something, there was always going to be someone, or even like girls, ganging up on them and be like, "Ah, you fucker," and they will like start fighting in like gang fights, you know? There will be gang fights. There wouldn't be only one gang, there will be several. And they will all fight each other to be like, "Alright, fucker," you know? Just, you know, some even weren't in gangs. Some of them were like, you know, one person just going like, "I'm gonna fight all this gang." And that was usually me. But I wouldn't fight them when they were together. I will try to sneak on them like one by one, you know, and maybe like, you know, situations where like, "Oh, this person of this gang is alone. I should fucking kill them right now. I should take this opportunity to beat the fuck out of them." You know? It's just something here. Oh. Chapter 3. The Letters from No One. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. Oh, I have an idea. Let's listen to oh fuck, what can we listen to? Oh, we have a bunch of messages. Oh my god, wait a minute. Yo, I'm reading. I am trying to learn how to write better by reading books. Yeah. Wait, I have messages. Yeah, there you go. I have no trouble here. Alright. What music should I play? What can I play? Something that fits the mood. Let me check my music folders. Something that could fit. Let me think. What can I listen to? Man, I don't know. I'm trying to see what I can listen to. Maybe I can listen to the fucking Stray soundtrack. That's a good idea. It's a good idea. It's calming, you know? Alright. Chapter 3, The Letters from No One. I want to clean my hands because I like getting my hands fresh. I have some alcohol gel for my hands, then I'll put some cream on them. Okay. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holiday had started, and Dudley had already broken his new video camera, crashed his remote control airplane, and, first time out on his racing bike, knocked down old Miss Fig as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping Dudley's gang, who visited the house every single day. Pierce, Dennis, Malcolm, holy shit, Malcolm in the middle, and Gordon, oh wow, Gordon Freeze. We're all big and stupid. The big and stupid. Just push them from the stairs. Jesus, that's like an easy trick over here. If you have a bully, right, over here and he's fat, just sneak up on him from behind the stairs and push them away. They're gonna fall very easy. They have no fucking balance because they're fat. So, yeah. Trick. Got it memorized? Alright. But as Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the lot, he was the leader. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. What the fuck? This was why Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, wandering around and thinking about the end of the holidays, where he could see a tiny ray of hope. When September came, he will be going off to secondary school, and, for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. Dudley had been accepted at Uncle Burnham's old private school, Smeltings. Pierce Polkis was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, the local public school. No problem. Dudley thought this was very funny. They stopped people's head down the toilet the first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? This guy is weird. No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilets never had anything as hard as your head down it. Might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he said. Imagine just Dudley be like, you suck, Harry. And then Harry's like, well, you suck harder, whore. Oh! He just goes running. Or was it? There were people that will say like, when they tell you you suck, then you will say, and you swallow. Oh, it's so stupid. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dolly to London to buy his Smeltings uniform, leaving Harry and Mrs. Figs. You know, I like to think Harry is a sneaky little bastard, you know, just a very, you know, how do I get this, a smirky little dude who will just be like, hee you stupid, and then just run and shit, you know. When someone bothers them, though, I don't think he will do that all the time. But it's kind of funny to think of Harry like that. Alright. Mrs. Fig wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she'd broken her leg tripping over one of her cats. No! And she didn't seem quite as fond as, of them as before. Aw. She let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she had it for several years. Christ. It's just an old lady with dementia. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smelting's boys wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hats called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks, used for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. This was supposed to be good training for later life. What? As he looked at Dudley in his new knickerbockers, Uncle Burnham said gruffly that it was the proudest moment of his life. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and said she couldn't believe it was her Ickle Dudleykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought 2 of his ribs might already have cracked from trying not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in grey water. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia, her lips tightened as they always did if he dared to ask a question. "Your new school uniform," she said. Harry looked at the ball again. "Oh," he said. "I didn't realize it had to be so wet." "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dolly's old things grey for you. It'll look just like everyone else's when I've finished." "Oh." Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it business to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look on his first day at Stonewall High. He was wearing bits of old elephant skin, probably. He's like such mess, Christ. He will probably look like, well, over here it's common, you know. So he'll be like, "Oh, did you got those clothes from your family?" "Yes." "Oh, okay." And then it will be like whatever, you know, because it's normal for, you know, to do that shit here. At least it was when I was around. Now it's a lot cheaper, but, you know, before it was like, uniforms were such a like a huge deal back then over here, and they were like, "Oh my god, you're gonna wear the uniform." It's like, well, I have this the uniform here is like a white tunic, right? It's a white long tunic, one for women and one for men. And usually most people would just buy one, but there were people like, "Oh, look at this really cute old tunic I used when I was little. Yeah, it will be so good on you." And, you know, they will look good. No one cared. They were like, "Oh, yeah, that's one of the old ones. That looks pretty cool." And that's it. There's even now, I think now there are actually, like, instead of white tunics, there's black and dark blue tunics. So you can use those instead, too. It's really cool. Alright. Dolly and Uncle Burnham came in, both with wrinkled noses. Oh, yeah. I forgot to say this, but, guys need to wear a blue lace tie, and then women have this blue lace ribbons in the neck over here. Guys can also wear the ribbons, but they prefer the ties, you know. But it's like it can work for both. It's like a blue ribbon. You could make a drawing of it, but I'm not gonna do that. Well, Dudley and Uncle Burnham came in, both with wrinkled noses because of the smell from Harry's new uniform. Uncle Burnham opened his new papers as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, which he carried everywhere on the table. They heard the click of the mail slot and flop of letters of the doormat. "Get the mail, Dudley," said Uncle Burnham from behind his paper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the mail, Harry." "Make Dudley get it." "Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the smelting stick and went to get the mail. 3 things lay on the doormat. A postcard from Uncle Burnham's sister Marge, who was vacationing on the Isle of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic band. No one, ever, in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives. He didn't belong to the library, so he never got rude notes asking for books back. Yet here it was. A letter, addressed so plainly there could be no mistake. Mr. Harry Potter, to cupboard under the stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms. A lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake, surrounding a large letter H. "Hurry up, boy," shouted Uncle Burnham from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back to the kitchen, still tearing at his letter. He handed Uncle Burnham the bill and the postcard, sat down, and slowly began to open the yellow envelope. Uncle Burnham ripped open the bill, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. Marge is ill, he informed Aunt Petunia. Ate a funny walk. Dad, said Dudley suddenly. Dad, Harry's got something. Harry was on the point of unfolding his letter, which was written on the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it was jerked sharply out of his hand by Uncle Burnham. That's mine, said Harry, trying to snatch it back. Who'll be writing to you? Sneered Uncle Burnham, shaking the letter open with one hand and gazing at it. His face went from red to green faster than a set of traffic lights, and it didn't stop there. Within seconds it was the grayish white of old porridge. Petunia, he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter to read it, but Uncle Burnham held it high out of his reach. Aunt Petunia took it curiously and read the first line. For a moment it looked as though she might faint. She clutched her throat and made a choking noise. Burnham! Oh my goodness, Burnham! They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on the head with his melding stick. I want to read that letter, he said loudly. I want to read it, said Harry fiercely. As it's mine? Get out, both of you, croaked Uncle Burnham, stuffing the letter back inside its envelope. Harry didn't move. I want my letter, he shouted. Let me see it, demanded Dudley. Out, roared Uncle Burnham, as he took both Harry and Dudley by the scruffs of their necks and threw them into the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Ugh! Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on his stomach to listen at the crack between door and floor. Burnham, Aunt Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, look at the address. How could they possibly know where he sleeps? You don't think they're watching the house? Watching, spying, might be following us, muttered Uncle Burnham wildly. What should we do, Burnham? Should we write back? Tell them we don't want... Harry could see Uncle Burnham's shiny black shoes prancing up and down the kitchen. No, he said finally. No, we'll ignore it. If they don't get an answer, yes, that's best. We don't do anything. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him in we stamp out that dangerous nonsense? Ooh. That evening when he got back from work, Uncle Burnham did something he'd never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. Where's my letter? Said Harry, the moment Uncle Burnham had squeezed through the door. Who's writing to me? No one. It was addressed to you by mistake, said Uncle Burnham shortly. I have burned it. It was not a mistake, said Harry angrily. It had my cupboard on it. Silence, yelled Uncle Burnham, and a couple of spiders fell from the ceiling. Jesus. He took a few deep breaths and then forced his face into a smile, which looked quite painful. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard, your aunt and I have been thinking you're really getting a bit big for it. We think it might be nice if you move into Dudley's second bedroom. Why? Said Harry. Don't ask questions, snapped his uncle. Take this stuff upstairs, now. Oh. Nice. The Dursleys' house had 4 bedrooms, one for Uncle Burnham and Aunt Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Burnham's sister Marge, one where Dudley slept, and one where Dudley kept all the toys and things that wouldn't fit into his first bedroom. It only took Harry one trip upstairs to move everything he owned from the cupboard to his room. He sat down on the bed and stared around him. Nearly everything in here was broken. The month-old video camera was lying on top of a small working tank Dudley had once driven over the next-door neighbor's dog. In the corner was Dudley's first ever television set, which he put his foot through when his favorite program had been cancelled. There was a large birdcage which had once held a parrot that Dudley had swapped at school for a real air rifle, which was up on a shelf with the end all bent because Dudley had sat on it. Other shelves were full of books. They were the only things in the room that looked as though they'd never been touched. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. I don't want him there, I need that room, and make him get out. Harry sighed and stretched out on the bed. Yesterday he had given anything to be up here. Today he read me back in his cupboard with the letter than up here without it. Next morning at breakfast, everyone was rather quiet. Dudley was in shock. He screamed, whacked his finger with his melting stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. Harry was thinking about this time yesterday and bitterly wishing he'd opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Burnham and Aunt Petunia kept looking at each other darkly. When the mail arrived, Uncle Burnham, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go and get it. They heard him banging things with his melting stick all the way down the hall. Then he shouted, "There's another one!" Mr. Harry Potter, the smallest bedroom, 4 Privet Drive. With a strangled cry, Uncle Burnham leapt from his seat and ran down the hall, Harry right behind him. Uncle Burnham had to wrestle Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him, which was made difficult by the fact that Harry had grabbed Uncle Burnham around the neck from behind. After a minute of confused fighting, in which everyone got hit by a lot by the smelting stick, Uncle Burnham straightened up, gasping for breath, with Harry's letter clutched in his hand. "Go to your bedroom," he wheezed at Harry. "Dudley, go, just go." Harry walked round and round his new room. Someone knew he had moved out of his cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant they'd try again, and this time he'd make sure they didn't fail. He had a plan. The repair alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning on any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman in the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters of number 4 first. His heart hammered as he crept across the dark hall toward the front door. Harry leapt into the air. He threw on something big and squashy on the doormat. Something alive. Lights clicked on upstairs, and to his horror Harry realized the big, squashy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Burnham had been lying at the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure that Harry didn't do exactly what he'd been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour and then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Ugh. Harry shuffled miserably off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the mail had arrived, right into Uncle Burnham's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. "I want," he began, but Uncle Burnham was tearing the letters into pieces before his eyes. Uncle Burnham didn't go to work that day. He stayed at home and nailed up the mail slot. "See," he explained to Aunt Petunia through a mouthful of nails, "if they can't deliver them, they'll just give up." "I'm not sure that'll work, Burnham." "Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like you and me," said Uncle Burnham, trying to knock in a nail with the piece of fruitcake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. On Friday, no less than 12 letters arrived for Harry. As they couldn't go through the mail slot, they had been pushed under the door, slotted through the sides, and a few even forced through the small window in the downstairs bathroom. Uncle Burnham stayed at home again. After burning all the letters, he got out a hammer and nails and boarded up the cracks around the front and back doors so no one could go out. He hummed, tiptoed through the tulips as he worked and jumped at small noises. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters to Harry found their way into the house, rolled up and hidden inside each of the 2 dozen eggs that their very confused milkman had handed Aunt Petunia through the living room window. What the fuck? What? Why? Uncle Burnham made furious telephone calls to the post office and the diary, trying to find someone to complain to. Aunt Petunia shredded the letters in her food processor. "Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly?" Dudley asked Harry in amazement. On Sunday morning, Uncle Burnham sat down at the breakfast table looking tired, rather ill, but happy. "No post on Sundays," he reminded them cheerfully as he spread marmalade on his newspaper. "No damn letters today." Wait. He spread marmalade on his newspaper? He's going live. He's unhinged. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney as he spoke and cut him sharply on the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came, pelting out of the fireplace like bullets. The Dursleys ducked, but Harry leapt out in the air trying to catch one. Out. Uncle Burnham seized Harry around the waist and threw him into the hall. Imagine him like just having a fucking fight. When Aunt Petunia and Dolly had run out with their arms over their faces, Uncle Burnham slammed the door shut. They could hear the letter still streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and floor. "That does it," said Uncle Burnham, trying to speak calmly but pulling great tufts out of his mustache at the same time. "I want you all back here in 5 minutes, ready to leave. We're going away. Just pack some clothes. No arguments." He looked so dangerous with half his mustache missing that no one dared argue. 10 minutes later they had wrenched their way through the boarded up doors and were in the car. Speeding toward the highway, Dudley was sniffling in the back seat. His father had hit him round the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television, VCR, and computer in his sports bag. They drove, and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare ask where they were going. Every now and then Uncle Burnham could take a sharp turn and drive in the opposite direction for a while. Shake him off, he will mutter whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink at all. By nightfall, Dudley was howling. He never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry, he'd missed 5 television programs he wanted to see, and he'd never gone so long without blowing up an alien on his computer. Uncle Burnham stopped at last outside a gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of a big city. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, musty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights of passing cars and wondering. They ate stale cornflakes and cold thin tomatoes on toast for breakfast. Yo! Wait, no. It's not tomato paste, never mind. The next day, they had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to their table. "Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. Harry Potter? Only I got about 100 of these at the front desk." She held up a letter so they could read the green ink address. "Mr. Harry Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Cokeworth." Harry made a grab of the letter, but Uncle Burnham knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. "I'll take them," said Uncle Burnham, standing up quickly and following her from the dining room. "Wouldn't it be better just to go home, dear?" Aunt Petunia suggested timidly, hours later, but Uncle Burnham didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove them into the middle of the forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, got back in the car, and off they went again. The same thing happened in the middle of a plowed field, halfway across the suspension bridge, and at the top of a multi-level parking garage. "Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" Dudley asked Aunt Petunia duly late that afternoon. Uncle Burnham had parked at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops beat on the roof of the car. Dudley sniveled. "It's Monday," he told his mother. "The great Humberto's on tonight. I want to stay somewhere with a television." Monday. This reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, you could usually count on Dudley to know the days of the week because of television. Then tomorrow, Tuesday, and Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthdays were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Burnham's old socks. Still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Burnham was back, and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package and didn't answer Aunt Petunia when she asked what he'd bought. "Found the perfect place," he said. "Come on, everyone, out." It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Burnham was pointing at what looked like a large rock way out of sight. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable little shack you could imagine. One thing was certain, there was no television in there. "Storm forecast for tonight," said Uncle Burnham gleefully, clapping his hands together, "and this gentleman has kindly agreed to lend us his boat." A toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing, with a very wicked grin, at an old rowboat bobbing in the iron-grey water below them. "I already got us some rations," said Uncle Burnham, "so all aboard." It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks, and a chilling wind whipped their faces. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock, where Uncle Burnham, slipping and sliding, led the way to the broken-down house. "You know what? I'm having fun reading." Who would have thought this? Let me actually answer messages. Oh shit. I'm never a books person. I was never one. But I'm actually having fun reading. I feel weird. Yeah. Damn. Alright. The inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed. I see no problem. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls, and the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Burnham's rations turned out to be a bag of chips each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire, but the empty chip bags were smoked and shriveled up. Could do with some of these letters now, eh? He said cheerfully. He was in a very good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them here in a storm to deliver mail. Harry privately agreed, though he thought didn't cheer him up at all. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room and made up a bed for Dolly on the moth-eating sofa. She and Uncle Burnham went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could and curl up under the thinnest, most ragged blanket. The storm raged more and more furiously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned by the low rolls of thunder that started near midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, told Harry he'd been 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and watched his birthday tick nearer, wondering if the Dursleys would remember at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. Okay, I have a picture in my head about how this looks. Very epic. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although he might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive will be so full of letters when they go back that he'll be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? 1 minute to go and he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he wake Dudley up just to annoy him. 3. 2. 1. That's how I can do it, I guess. The whole shack shivered and Harry sat bolt upright, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. The fuck? Chapter 4. That's Hagrid! The keeper of the keys. Oppa! Oppa! Yeah! Wait, one of my friends actually released the album. Wow. Look. Look, this is my Instagram. Nice. Banana. Banana. Nice. Huh. Really nice. Okay. The keeper of the keys. That's the boom, okay? They knocked again. Dudley jerked awake. "Where's the cannon?" he said stupidly. There was a crash behind them and Uncle Burnham came skittily into the room. He was holding a rifle in his hands. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with them. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." There was a pause. Then smash! Oh no, smash isn't like a... The door was hit with such force that it swung clean off its hinges and with a deafening crash landed flat on the floor. A giant of a man was standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes, glinting like black beetles under all the hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so that his head just brushed the ceiling. He bent down, picked up the door, and fitted it easily back into its frame. The noise of a storm outside dropped a little. He turned to look at them all. "Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could ye? It's not been an easy journey." He strode over to the sofa where Dolly sat frozen with fear. "Good job, you great lump," said the stranger. Dudley squeaked and ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching, terrified, behind Uncle Burnham. "And here's Harry," said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw that the beetle eyes were crinkled in a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby," said the giant. "Yeah, look a lot like your dad, but you got your mom's eyes." Uncle Burnham made a funny rasping noise. "It meant that you leave at once, sir," he said. "We are breaking and entering." You know what this reminds me? It reminds me of a meme of like the UN, blue helmets with the stupid faces going like, "We demand that you stop this nonsense," and then the whatever else is on the right being like, "Shut the fuck up." Shut up, Dursley, you geared prune," said the giant. He reached over the back of the sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Burnham's hand, bent it into a knot as easily as if it had been made of rubber, and threw it into a corner of the room. Psst! Uncle Burnham made another funny noise, like a mouse being trodden on. "Anyway, Harry," said the giant, turning his back on the Dursleys, "a very happy birthday to ye. Got some affair ye he. I might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste alright." From an inside pocket of his black overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. Harry opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a large, sticky chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday, Harry" written on it in green icing. "Yay!" Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but the words got lost on the way of his mouth, and what he said was, "Who are you?" The giant chuckled. True. I haven't introduced myself. Rubius Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts." He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. "But about the tea then, eh?" he said, rubbing his hands together. "I'd not say no, there's some much stronger if you got it, mind?" His eyes fell on the empty grate with the shriveled chip bags in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing, but when he drew back a second later, there was a roaring fire there. It filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth wash over him as though he sunk into a hot bath. Very nice. The giant sat back down on the sofa, which sagged under his weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of the pockets of his coat. A copper kettle, a squashy package of sausages, a pucker, a teapot, several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid that he took a swig from before starting to make tea. Soon the hut was full of the sound and smell of sizzling sausage. Delicious! Nobody said a thing while the giant was working, but as he slid the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burnt sausages from the pucker, Dolly fidgeted a little. Uncle Vernon said sharply, "Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley." The giant chuckled darkly. "You're a great pudding of a son, don't need feeding anymore. Dudley, don't worry." He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful, but he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, as nobody seemed about to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, but I still don't know who you are." "Yo, this sausage is great, but who the fuck are you?" The giant took a gulp of tea and whipped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Call me Hagrid," he said. "Everyone does. And like I told you, I'm keeper of keys at Hogwarts. Yeah, I know all about Hogwarts, of course." No," said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. "Sorry," Harry said quickly. "Sorry?" barked Hagrid, turned to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. "It's them as shall be sorry. I know you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts. For crying out loud. You never wonder where your parents learned it all?" "All what?" asked Harry. "All what?" Harry thundered. "No, wait, just one sec." He had leapt to his feet. In his anger, he seemed to fill the whole hut. The Dursleys were cowering against the wall. "Do you mean to tell me," he growled at the Dursleys, "that this boy knows nothing about anything?" Damn, Hagrid, bro, he's great. Yeah, I like him. Harry thought this was going a bit far. He had been to school after all, and his marks weren't bad. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do math and stuff." But Harry simply waved his hand and said, "About our world, I mean. Your world, my world, your parents' world." "What world?" Harry looked as if he was about to explode. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, whispered something that sounded like "bimble wimble." Hagrid stared wildly at Harry. "But you must know about your mom and dad," he said. "I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What? My mom and dad were famous, were they?" You don't know. Harry ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know what you're there?" What? "No." "Oh, no, I actually read the other thing. You don't know what you are?" he said finally. Uncle Vernon suddenly found his voice. "Stop," he commanded. "Stop right there, sir. I forbid you to tell the boy anything." A withered man than Vernon Dursley, while a quail under the furious look Hagrid now gave him. When Hagrid spoke, his every syllable trembled with rage. "You never told him? Never told him that was in the letter Dumbledore left for him? I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it, Dursley. And you kept it from me all these years?" "Get what from me?" said Harry eagerly. "Stop, I forbid you!" yelled Uncle Vernon in panic. Aunt Petunia gave a gasp of horror. "Ah, go boil your heads, both of you," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." "You're a wizard!" There was silence inside the hut. Only the sea and the whistling wind could be heard. "I'm a what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course." "But I'm just Harry. I'm just Harry." "But you're a wizard, Harry. You do spells and shit." But I'm a what? But I'm just Harry." That video's so stupid. Anyway, "I'm a what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course," said Harry, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. "And a thumping good on, I'll say. Once you've been trained up a bit, with a mom and dad like yours, what else will you be? And reckon it's about time you read your letter." Harry stretched out his hand at last to take the yellowish envelope, addressed in emerald green to Mr. Harry Potter. The floor, hot on the rock, the sea. He pulled out the letter and read, "Howard School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Headmaster Albus Dumbledore, Order of Meddling First Class, Grand Sorceress, Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confederation of Wizards. Dear Miss Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Howard School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find and close at list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1. We await your owl by no other than July 31. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. Hee-ho!" Questions exploded inside Harry's head like fireworks, and he couldn't decide which to ask first. After a few minutes, he stammered, "What does it mean they await my owl?" "Galloping Gargons, that reminds me," said Hagrid, clapping his hands to his forehead with enough force to knock over a cart horse. And from yet another pocket inside his overcoat, he pulled an owl from his pocket. A real, alive, rather ruffled-looking owl, a long quill, and a roll of parchment. With his tongue between his teeth, he scribbled a note that Harry could read upside down. "Dear Professor Dumbledore, giving Harry his letter, taking him to buy his things tomorrow. Weather's horrible. Hope you're well, Hagrid." Hagrid rolled up the note, gave it to the owl, which clamped it in his beak, went to the door, and threw the owl out in the storm. Then he came back and sat down as though he was as normal as talking on the telephone. Harry realized his mouth was open and closed it quickly. "Where was I?" said Hagrid, but at the moment Uncle Vernon, still ashen-faced, but looking very angry, moved into the firelight. "He's not going," he said. Harry grunted. "I hate to see a great muggle like you stop him," he said. "A what?" said Harry, interested. "A muggle," said Harry. "It's what we call non-magic folk like them. And it's your bad luck you grew up in a family of the biggest muggles I ever laid eyes on. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to that rubbish," said Uncle Vernon. "Swore we stamp it out of him. Wizard indeed." "You knew?" said Harry. "You knew I'm a wizard?" "Knew?" shrieked Aunt Petunia suddenly. "Knew, of course we knew. How could you not be? My dreaded sister being what she was? Oh, she got a letter just like that and disappeared out of that school and came home every vacation with her pockets full of frogs, spawn, turning teacups into rats. It was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak. For my mother and father, oh no. It was Lily this and Lily that. They were proud of having a witch in the family. Oh, so she was just jealous. Crazy." She stopped to draw a deep breath and then went ranting on. It seemed she had been wanting to say all this for years. "Then she met that Potter at school and they left and got married and had you. And of course I knew you'd be just the same, just as strange, just as abnormal as then. If you please, she went and got herself blown up and we got landed with you. An autistic child." Imagine. Harry had gone very white. As soon as he found his voice he said, "Blown up? You told me they died in a car crash." "Car crash!" roared Hagrid, jumping up so angrily that Dursley scuttled back to their corner. "How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage, a scandal. Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in the world knows his name." "Funny enough, that's true." "But why? What happened?" Harry asked urgently. The anger faded from Hagrid's face. He looked suddenly anxious. "I never expected this," he said, in a low, worried voice. "I had no idea. When Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold for you, how much he didn't know. Harry, I didn't know if I'm the right person to tell you, but someone's gotta... Yeah, can go off the Howards not knowing." He tried to look at the Dursleys. "Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it." He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said, "It begins, I suppose, with a person called... But it's incredible you don't know his name. Everyone in our world knows." "Who?" "Who?" "I'm actually having fun reading this." "Well, I'd like saying your name if I can help it. No one does." "Why not?" Gulping gargles Harry. "People are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. See, there was this wizard who went bad. As bad as you could go. Worse than ever. His name was..." Harry gulped, but no words came out. "Could you write it down?" Harry suggested. "Nah, can't spell it." "Alright. Voldemort," Harry shuddered. "Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard, about 20 years ago now, started looking for followers. Got him too. Some were afraid, some just wanted a bit of his power, because he was getting himself power, alright? Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things happened. He was taken over. Of course, some stood up to him, and he killed them, horribly. One of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you-know-who was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking the school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mom and dad were as good as witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you-know-who never tried to get him on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want anything to do with the dark side. Maybe he thought he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted them out of the way. All anyone knows is, he turned up in the village where you was all living on Halloween 10 years ago. He was just a year old. He came to your house and Henry suddenly pulled out a very dirty, spotted handkerchief and blew his nose with a sound like a foghorn. "Sorry," he said. But it's that sad. No, your mom and dad, and nicer people you couldn't find anyway. You know who killed them. And this is a real mystery of the thing. He tried to kill you too. wanted to make a clean job of it, I suppose, or maybe he just liked killing by then, but he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead. There was no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful evil curse touches you. Took care of your mom and dad and your house even, but it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill them. No one except you, and he killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, the Pruitts, and you was only a baby and you lived. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he had ever remembered it before. And he remembered something else. For the first time in his life, a high, cold, cruel laugh. Hagrid was watching him sadly. Took it from the ruined house myself, on Dumbledore's orders. Boy at tourist lot. Loadful Tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten that the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have got back his courage. He was glaring at Hagrid and his fists were clenched. Now, you listen here, boy, he snarled. Except there's something strange about you. Probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all this about your parents, well, they were weirdos, don't I in it, and the world's better off without them in my opinion. As for all they got, getting mixed up with these wizarding types, just what I expect. I always knew they'd come to a sticky end. Jesus Christ! Oh my god! But at the moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat. Pointing this at Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley, I'm warning you, on my word. In danger of being speared on the end of an umbrella by a bearded giant. Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which this time sank right down to the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask, hundreds of them. But what happened to you know who? Good question, Harry. Disappeared, vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Became even more famous. That's the biggest mystery, see. He was getting more and more powerful. Where'd he go? Some say he died. Got swallowed up, in my opinion. Don't know he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there, biding his time, like... But I don't believe it. People who was on his side came back through ours. Some of them came out of kind of trances. Don't reckon they could have done if he was coming back. Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere but lost his powers. Too weak to carry on. There's something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does, but something about you stumped him, alright? Harry looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes. But Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure he had been a horrible mistake. Jesus Christ! The worst shit happens to Harry. What the fuck is 11? A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He spent his life being clouded by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Burnham. If he was really a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? If he once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Hagrid, he said quietly. I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, huh? Never made things happen when you were scared or angry? Harry looked into the fire, though he came to think of it. Every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, had been upset or angry. Chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach. Dreading going to school with that ridiculous haircut, he managed to make it grow back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he got his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Had he set a boa constrictor on him? Harry turns evil. Kill him. Kill him. Do it. Harry looked back at Hagrid, smiling, and saw that Hagrid was positively beaming at him. See, said Hagrid. Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait, you'll be right famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Burnham wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you he's not going? He hissed. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I read those letters he needs all sort of rubbish, spell books and wands, and he wants to go. Green Muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and James Potter's son going to Hogwarts. You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off near the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort for a change, and he'll be under the greatest headmaster Hogwarts ever had, Albus Dumbledore. Oh, I'm not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks, yelled Uncle Vernon. But he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air to point at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light, a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and the next second Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pig's tail poking through a hole in his trousers. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dolly into the other room. He cast one last terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind them. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard. Shouldn't have lost the temper, he said roughly, but it didn't work anyway. Manyard turned him into a pig, but I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do. He cast a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrows. Be grateful if you didn't mention that there anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I'm not supposed to do magic, strictly speaking. I was allowed to do a bit, follow ya, get your letters, do the other stuff. One of the reasons I was so keen to take on the job. Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Asked Harry. Oh well, I was a Hogwarts myself, but got expelled. You tell the truth, in the meteor year, they snapped my wand in half and everything, but Dumbledore let me stay on as gamekeeper. I say gatekeeper? Great man, Dumbledore. Why were you expelled? It's getting late and we got lots to do tomorrow, said Hagrid loudly. Gotta get up there town, get your books instead. He took off his thick black coat and threw it to Harry. You can keep it under that, he said. Don't mind if I wriggles a bit. I think it got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets. It's kinda hard to read Hagrid because he's very sleazy, you know. It's kinda hard to read him, but I like it. I understand what he's saying, it's just a little hard to read. Wait. How is reading fun? How is this happening? Anyway. Chapter 5. Diagon Alley. Oh, this is where he's gonna buy his shit. Let's go. Harry woke early the next morning. Although he could tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes shut tight. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. A dream that giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to a school for wizards. When I opened my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard. There was suddenly a loud tapping noise, and there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door. Harry thought, his heart sinking, but he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. Tap, tap, tap. Oh, let me just... wait, I have a table here. Alright, Harry mumbled, I'm getting up. He sat up and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. Oh, the hut was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the collapsed sofa, and there was an owl wrapping its claw on the window. A newspaper held in its beak. Oh, nice! Harry scrambled to his feet, so happy he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. Yay! He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. The owl then fluttered into the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coat. Don't do that. Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on savaging the coat. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, there's an owl. Pay him, Hagrid grunted into the sofa. What? He wants paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pockets. Oh, Harry's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets. Bunches of keys, slug pellets, balls of string, peppermint, humbugs, tea bags. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coins. Give him 5 nuts, said Harry sleepily. Nuts? The little bronze one. Oh, the little bronze ones. Oh. Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins, and they all held out of his leg so Harry could put the money into a small leather pouch tied to it. Then he flew off through the open window. Dale was gonna buy snacks for himself? What the fuck? Harriet yawned loudly, sat up and stretched. Best be off, Harry. Lots to do today. Gotta go after London and buy all your stuff for school. Harry was turning over the wizard coins and looking at them. He had just thought of something that made him feel as though he had happy balloon inside him and got a puncture. Hagrid? said Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. I haven't got any money, and you heard Uncle Brenham last night. He won't pay for me to go and learn magic. Don't worry about that, said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head. You think your parents didn't leave you anything? But if their house was destroyed... They didn't keep their gold in the house, boy. Nah, first stop for us is Gringotts, Wizard's Bank. Have a sausage. They're not bad cold, and I wouldn't say on a bit of birthday cake either. Okay, so in this, Dudley didn't eat his cake. Epic. So he has the birthday cake, like he still has chocolate cake with icing, and they're gonna eat cold sausages for breakfast? I mean, it's fine. Alright. Wizards have banks? Just the one, Gringotts, run by goblins. Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins? Yeah. So don't be mad if I try and rob it. I'll tell you that. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Gringotts is the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep safe. Said maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, you gotta visit Gringotts anyway, for Dumbledore. Hogwarts business. Hagrid drew himself up proudly. He usually gets me to do important stuff for him. Fetching you, getting things from Gringotts. Knows he can trust me, see? Got everything? Come on, then. Harry followed Hagrid out into the rock. The sky was quite clear now, and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. That's my favorite view, man. Like, I live near the beach, and in my entire country, even if the city, you can see the beach, right? And I like it to look at it in the day. I don't like it at night as much. I think it's okay, but I like it at the day where you can see the sunlight just like gleaming on the sea. It's my favorite view, man. I don't know why I like to look at it. I don't like going to the beach, but I like looking at it. It's relaxing. It's like my favorite view, you know? It makes me feel very peaceful when I do that. Every time I go to certain places, right? I can always see the sea from the bus, and I'm like, yeah, that's really nice view. It's really good. Anyway, the boat Uncle Burnham had hired was still there, with a lot of water in the bottom after the storm. How'd you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat. Flew, said Hagrid. Flew? Yeah, but we'll go back in this. Not supposed to use magic now, I got you. They settled down in the boat, Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying. Sees a shape though now, though, said Hagrid, giving Harry another of his sideways looks. If I was to speed things up a bit, will you mind not mentioning it at Hogwarts? Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. It's kinda cute. Harry pulled out the pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off toward land. Why do you even want to try and rob Gringotts? Harry asked. Spells, enchantments, said Hagrid, unfolding his newspaper as he spoke. They said there's dragons guarding the high security vaults, and then you gotta find your way. Gringotts is hundreds of miles under London Sea, deep under the underground. You'd die of hunger trying to get out, even if you did manage to get your hands on summit. You get your hands on summit. Something, I guess. I guess he's trying to say something on summit. Something. Harry sat and thought about this while Hagrid read his newspaper, The Daily Prophet. Harry had learned from Uncle Brenham that people liked to be left alone while they did this, but it was very difficult. He never had so many questions in his life. Ministry of Magic messing things up as usual, Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a Ministry of Magic? Harry asked, before he could stop himself. Course, said Hagrid. They put a Dumbledore for minister, of course, but he never left Hogwarts, so old Cornelius Fudge got the job. Bungler if ever there was one, so he pelts Dumbledore with owls every morning asking for advice. But what does the Ministry of Magic do? Well, their main job is to keep it from the muggles that there's still witches and wizards up and down the country. Why? Why? Blimey, Harry, everyone be wanting magic solutions to their problems. Now we're best left alone. At this moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbor wall. Hagrid folded up his newspaper, and they clambered up the stone steps under the street. Passersby stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town to the station. Harry couldn't blame them. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as anyone else, he kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things like parking meters and saying loudly, "See that, Harry? Things these muggles dream up, huh?" "Hagrid," said Harry, panting a bit as he ran to keep up. "You say there are dragons at Gringotts?" "Well, so they say," said Hagrid. "Crikey, I like a dragon." "You like one?" "Wanted one ever since I was a kid. Here you go." They had reached the station. There was a train to London in 5 minutes' time. Hagrid, who didn't understand Muggle money, as he called it, gave the bills to Harry so he could buy the tickets. Oh. Yeah, I'm liking this. I'm having fun reading. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. "Still got your letter, Harry?" he asked as he counted stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. "Good," said Hagrid. "There's a list there of everything you need." Harry unfolded a second piece of paper he hadn't noticed the night before and read, "Howard School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First year students full require 3 sets of plain work robes, black. 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Please note that all people's clothes should carry name tags." Course books, okay. All students should have a copy of each of the following: The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot. Magical Theory by Aldobert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philedia Spore. Magical Drugs and Potions by Arsenius Tiger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Kenting Trimble. Other equipment: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2. Pewter! 1 set glass of crystal files, 1 telescope, and 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. "Can we buy all this in London?" Harry wondered aloud. "If you know where to go," said Hagrid. Harry had never been to London before, although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going. He was obviously not used to getting there in an ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and trains too slow. "I don't know how the Muggles manage without magic," he said as they climbed a broken-down escalator that led up to a bustling road lined with shops. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. That's what I do all the time. Because when I hang out with friends, they're tall, right? Like, they're very tall compared to me. And I'm always, like, looking at their backs or like, their stomachs, and I'm there like, yeah? I had to actually look up to look at their faces. I'm like, you know? They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand. There was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shelves that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not be all some huge joke that the Dursley had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursley had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Harry had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. "This is it," said Harry, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Harry hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Harry could see it. Before he could mention this, Harriet had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old bartender, who was quite bald and looked like a toothless walnut. The low buzz of the chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the bartender reached for a glass, saying, "The usual, Hagrid." "Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the bartender, peering at Harry. "Is this... Can this be..." The leaky cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old bartender. "Harry Potter, what an honor!" He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed towards Harry and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter, welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Harry was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the leaky cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter, can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter, I'm just so proud. I just wanted to shake your hand. I'm all of a flutter." "Delighted, Mr. Potter, just can't tell you. Diggle's the name. Diddles Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Diddles Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in the shop." "He remembers!" cried Diddles Diggle, looking around everyone. "Do you hear that? He remembers me!" Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward, very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." "But, Potter," stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand, "can tell you how pleased I am to meet you." "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?" "The defense against the dark arts," muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. "Not that you need it, Potter." He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I get to pick up a new book on vampires myself." He looked terrified at the very thought. But the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble. "Must get on, lots to buy. Come on, Harry." Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small walled courtyard where there was nothing but a trash can and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. "Told you, didn't I? Told you he was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you." "Mind you, he's usually trembling." "Well, is he always that nervous?" "Oh yeah, poor bloke, brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying over the books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now, where's my umbrella?" "Vampires? Hags?" Harry's head was swimming. Harry, meanwhile, was counting bricks on the wall above the trash can. 3 up, 2 across," he muttered. "Right, stand back, Harry." He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered. It wriggled. In the middle, a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid, an archway onto a cobbled street that twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into a solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, puter, I don't know what that is, puter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, said a sign hanging over them. "Yeah, you'll be needing one," said Hagrid, "but we gotta get your money first." Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce, they're mad." Apothecary. What is that word? A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying I Elop's Owl Emporium, Tawny, Screech, Barn Brown and Snowy. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with broomsticks in it. Look, Harry heard one of them say, the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever. There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eel's eyes, tottering piles of spell books, quills, and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, gloves of the moon. Gringotts, said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold was— "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly as they walked up the white stone steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a shorty, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. Let me read this. Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. If you seek beneath their floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there. Like I said, they'd be mad if I tried to rob, said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading up the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," said Hagrid to a free goblin. "We come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." "You have his key, sir." "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets under the counter. Scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers, the goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on the right weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "That seems to be in order. I also got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I'll have someone take you down to both vaults. Griphook?" Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back inside his pocket, he and Harry followed Griphook towards one of the doors leading off the hall. "What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. "Can't tell you that," said Harry mysteriously. "Very secret. Howard's business. Double stresses me more and my job worthy to tell you." Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle fork, left, but it was impossible. The rattling car seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once, he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted around. "Oi, my stomach is rumbling." "Oi!" and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and floor. "I don't know what those are." "I never knew," Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between stalagmite and stalactite? Stalagmite's got an M in it, said Harriet, and don't ask me questions just now, I think I'm gonna be sick. He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Harriet got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Grandpa unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts. Oh, there's someone in the chat. It's the stone spike things in caves. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's. It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they had had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep, and all the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon and 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough, right? That should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Bolt 713 now, please. And can we go more slowly? One speed only, said Griphook. Ugh, they were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners. They were rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leaned over the side to try to see what was down at the dark bottom. But Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Bolt 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone with a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault. Harry was sure, and he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first, he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Harry picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask. Come on, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. Especially keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. One wildcat ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he had ever had in his whole life. More money than even Dudley had ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts. He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch, dressed all in mauve. Hogwarts, dear? She said. When Harry started to speak. Got the lot here. Another young man being fitted up, just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it on the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts too? Yes, said Harry. My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at once, said the boy. He had a bored, dulling voice. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one. I'll not smuggle it home somehow. Harry was strangely reminded of Dudley. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house. And I must say, I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know, I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'll leave, wouldn't you? Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. Hufflepuff is the one with the weirdos, I know that. That's probably where most of you guys and me will be. The weebs. I say, look at that man, said the boy suddenly, nodding toward the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice creams to show he couldn't come in. That's really cute. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. He works at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy. I heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he? He's the gatekeeper, I guess, he said. Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. Yes, exactly. I hear he's sort of a savage. Lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk. Tries to do magic and stops setting fire to his bed. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy, with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, said Harry shortly. Hey, where are your parents? They're dead. He just immediately says they're dead, said Harry shortly. It didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the other, not sounding sorry at all. But they were all kind, weren't they? They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the others start in, you know. They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname anyway? But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, That's you done, my dear. And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. Well, what's your Hogwarts, I suppose, said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream Harry had bought him. Chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. Yo, sick! I don't like chocolate ice cream because I feel it's a little too bitter for me. I don't like the flavor that much. And I had like, you know, artisan chocolate ice cream and stuff, but it still doesn't do it for me. I know there's a fuck ton of like chocolate variants, right? But am I really gonna try all of them? Be like, I wanna try this, and then if I don't like it, I'll be like, you know. So I'll see if I try one. Maybe white chocolate is good though. I try that one. What's up? Said Hagrid. Nothing. Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed color as he wrote. Wow, that's really cool. Oh, a message. Bittersweet is good too. Yeah, I like bittersweet. When they had left the shop, he said, Hagrid, what's Quidditch? Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know. Not knowing about Quidditch. Don't make me feel worse, said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy in Madame Malkin's. And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't be allowed in. You're not from a Muggle family. If you know who you were, he's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw what everyone in the League Cauldron was like when they saw you? Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them in a long time of Muggles. Look at you, my mom. Look at what she had for a sister. So what is Quidditch? He's like, oh, anyway, what's Quidditch? It's for sport. Where's the sport? It's like soccer in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules. And what are the Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses. There's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff for a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't a Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who was at Hogwarts? Years and years ago, said Hagrid. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Bloods, where the shelves were stuck to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones bound in leather, books the size of postage stamps and covers of silk. Books full of peculiar symbols and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter-curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges. Hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more. By Professor Benedictus Viridian. That's kind of funny. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you know I use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron. Either it says powder on your list, but they got a nice set of scales for weighing potions ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell. A mixture of bad eggs and rotten cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. You know what? If fucking, Howards and all that fucking shit was real, I think my favorite will be like the cauldron shit, because I'm like studying chemistry and shit like that, and I fucking love chemistry and shit. I love cooking, and this cauldron potion shit is basically like a mix of both, right? So I'll be like, yep, very epic, While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry, Harry himself examined silver unicorn horse at 21 galleons each and a minuscule, glittery black beetle ice, 5 nuts a scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just yet one left. Oh yeah, I still haven't got your birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. Oh, it's adorable, You think it's really cute. It's really wholesome. He's like, wow, a birthday present? No way, It's really cute. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I get an animal, not a toad. Those went out of fashion years ago. They be laughed at. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything. Hagrid is a really nice fella. He's really nice, bro. 20 minutes later, they left Elop's Owl Emporium, I guess, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage that held a beautiful snowy owl. That's really nice. Fast asleep with her head under her wing. Oh, it's a girl owl. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Harry gruffly. Don't expect you had a lot of presents from the Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now. Only place for wands, Ollivanders. You gotta have the best wand. A magic wand. This was what Harry had been really looking forward to. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peeling gold letters over the door read, Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Before Christ, I guess. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion in the dusty window. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depth of the shop as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single, spindly chair that Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely as though he had entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions that had just occurred to him and looked instead at the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly right up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Harrigan must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise and he got quickly off the spindly chair. Sorry, I'm checking something. Okay. An old man was standing before them, his wide, pale eyes shining like moons through the gloom of the shop. Hello, said Harry angrily. Ah, yes, said the man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's size. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself buying her first wand. 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice one for charm work. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he could blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand, 11 inches, pliable, a little more power and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I see your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course. Mr. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes, and that's where... Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long, white finger. I'm sorry to say I sold the one that did it, he said softly. 13½ inches. Yo? Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I know what that one was going out into the world to do... He shook his head and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Hagrid. Rubius Hagrid, how nice to see you again. Oak, 16 inches, rather bendy, wasn't it? It was, sir, yes, said Hagrid. Good one, that one. But suppose they snap it in half when you got expelled, said Mr. Ollivander, suddenly stern. Yes, they did, yes, said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. I've still got the pieces, though, he added brightly. But you don't use them? Said Mr. Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Mr. Ollivander, giving Harry a piercing look. Well, now, Mr. Potter, let me see. He pulled a long tape, measured with silver markings, out of his pocket. Which is your one arm? Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry. Hold out your arm. That's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and around his head. As he measured, he said, Every Ollivander one has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter, used unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and the heartstrings of dragons. No two Ollivander ones are the same, just as no two unicorns, dragons, and phoenixes are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing this on its own. Mr. Ollivander was flitting around the shelves, taking down boxes. That will do, he said, and the tape measure crumpled into a heap on the floor. Right then, Mr. Potter, try this one. Beechwood and dragon heartstring, 9 inches, nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave. Harry took the wand and, feeling foolish, moved it around a bit, and Mr. Ollivander snatched it off his hand almost at once. Maple and phoenix feather, 7 inches, quite whippy. Harry tried, but he had hardly raised the wand when it, too, was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander. No, here. Ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Go on, try it out. Harry tried and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair, but the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder now. Yes, why not? Initial combination. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his finger. He raised the wand above his head, but it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light on the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo, yes indeed. Oh, very good. Well. How curious, how very curious." He put Harry's wand back into its box and wrapped it in brown paper, still muttering. Curious. Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. I remember every one I ever saw, Mr. Potter, every single one. Is it happen that the phoenix whose tail's feather is in your wand give another feather? Just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this one when its brother... Why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry swallowed. Oh. Yes, 13.5 inches. Yo, I don't know what that is. Yo. Curious indeed how these things happen. The one chooses the wizard, remember? And I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bought them from his shop. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down Diagon Alley, back through the wall, back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. He didn't even notice how much people were gawking at them on the underground, laden as they were with all their funny-shaped packages, with the snowy owl asleep in its cage on Harry's lap. Up another escalator, out into Paddington Station, Harry only realized where they were when Hagrid tapped him on the shoulder. Got time for a bite to eat before your train leaves, he said. He bought Harry a hamburger. Yo! Burgers! And they sat down on plastic seats to eat them. Harry kept looking around. Everything looked so strange somehow. You're right, Harry. You're very quiet, said Harry. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He just had the best birthday of his life, and yet he chewed his hamburger, trying to find the words. "Everyone thinks I'm special," he said at last. "All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, they don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when, the night my parents died." Hagrid leaned across the table. Behind the wild beard and eyebrows, he wore a very kind smile. "Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself." "I know it's hard. You have been singled out, and that's always hard. But yeah, I have a great time at Hogwarts. I did. Still do, matter of fact." Hagrid helped Harry onto the train that will take him back to Dursleys, then handed him an envelope. "Your ticket for Hogwarts," he said. "1st of September, King's Cross. I told you your ticket. And your problems with Dursley, send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry." The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat and pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid had gone. Man, this is really cool. This is really, I don't know, I'm having a lot of fun. Let me answer some messages. It's actually fun to read. Who would have thought? Wait, I'm getting messages. Yeah. Huh? What's this? What am I looking at? What the hell? Anyway. Okay, chapter 6. Yo, we're going hard on here. It's fun, you know? We're just having a lot of fun. Alright. The journey from platform 9 3/4. Okay, Harry's last month with the Dursleys wasn't fun. True, Dudley was now so scared of Harry he wouldn't stay in the same room, while Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon didn't shut Harry in his cupboard, force him to do anything or shout at him. In fact, they didn't speak to him at all. Half terrified, half furious, they acted as though any chair with Harry in it were empty. Although this was an improvement in many ways, it did become a bit depressing after a while. Oh. No, man. Harry kept to his room with his new owl for company. He had decided to call her Hedwig, a name he had found in a history of magic. His school books were very interesting. He lay on his bed reading late in the night, Hedwig swooping in and out of the open window as she pleased. It was lucky that Aunt Petunia didn't come in to vacuum anymore, because Hedwig kept bringing back dead mice. Every night before he went to sleep, Harry ticked off another day on the piece of paper he had pinned to the wall, counting down to September the 1st. On the day last of August, he thought he'd better speak to his aunt and uncle about getting to King's Cross Station the next day, so he went down to the living room where they were watching a quiz show on television. He cleared his throat to let them know he was there, and Dudley screamed and ran from the room. Uncle Vernon? Uncle Vernon grunted to show he was listening. I need to be at King's Cross tomorrow to go to Hogwarts. Uncle Vernon grunted again. Would it be alright if you gave me a lift? Grunt. Harry supposed that meant yes. Thank you. He was about to go back upstairs when Uncle Bernard actually spoke. Funny way to get to a wizard school. The train. Magic carpets all got punctures, have they? Harry didn't say anything. Where's the school anyway? I don't know, said Harry, realizing this for the first time. He pulled the ticket Harry had given him out of his pocket. I just take the train from platform 9 and 3/4 at 11 o'clock, he read. His aunt and uncle stared. Platform what? 9 and 3/4. Don't talk rubbish, said Uncle Burnham. There is no platform 9 and 3/4. It's on my ticket. Barking, said Uncle Burnham, howling mad, the lot of them. You'll see. You just wait, alright? I'll take you to King's Cross. We're going out to London tomorrow anyway. Harry wouldn't bother. Where are you going to London? Harry asked, trying to keep things friendly. Taking Dudley to the hospital, growled Uncle Burnham. Good to have that ratty tail removed before he goes to smell things. Harry woke at 5 o'clock the next morning and was too excited and nervous to go back to sleep. He got up and pulled on his jeans, because he didn't want to walk into the station in his wizard robes. He changed on the train. He checked his Hogwarts list yet again to make sure he had everything he needed, saw that Haley was shut safely in her cage, and then paced the room, waiting for the Dursleys to get up. 2 hours later, Harry's huge, heavy trunk had been loaded into the Dursleys' car. Aunt Petunia had tucked Dudley into sitting next to Harry, and they had set off. They reached King's Cross at 10:30. Uncle Vernon dumped Harry's trunk into a cart and wheeled it in the station for him. Harry thought this was strangely kind until Uncle Vernon stopped dead, facing the platforms with a nasty grin on his face. Well, there you are, boy. Platform 9, platform 10. The platform shall be somewhere in the middle, but they don't seem to have built it yet, do they? He was quite right, of course. There was a big plastic number 9 over one platform, a big plastic number 10 over the next, and the one next to it, and in the middle, nothing at all. Have a good term, said Uncle Vernon with an even nastier smile. He left without another word. Harry turned and saw the Dursleys drive away. All 3 of them were laughing. Harry's mouth went rather dry. What on earth was he going to do? He was trying to attract a lot of funny looks. Because of Hedwig, he had to ask someone. He stopped a passing guard, but didn't dare mention platform 9 and 3/4. The guard had never heard of Hogwarts, and when Harry couldn't even tell him what part of the country it was in, he started to get annoyed, as though Harry was being stupid on purpose. Getting desperate, Harry asked for the train that left at 11 o'clock, but the guard said there wasn't one. In the end, the guard strode away, muttering about time wasters. Harry was now trying hard not to panic. According to the large clock over the arrivals board, he had 10 minutes left to get on the train to Hogwarts, and he had no idea how to do it. He was stranded in the middle of a station with a trunk he could hardly lift, a pocket full of wizard money, and a large owl. Harry must have forgotten to tell him something he had to do, like tapping the 3rd brick on the left to get into Diagon Alley. He wondered if he should get out his wand and start tapping the ticket inspector's stand between platforms 9 and 10. Okay, let's see. At that moment, a group of people passed just behind him, and he caught a few words of what they were saying, packed with muggles, of course. Oh! Harry swung round. The speaker was a plump woman who was talking to 4 boys, all with flaming red hair. Holy shit! It's the Ron Weasley. Each of them was pushing a trunk like Harry's in front of them, and they had an owl. Hard hammering. Harry pushed his cart after them. They stopped, and so did he, just near enough to hear what they were saying. Now, what's the platform number? Said the boy's mother. 9 and 3/4, piped a small girl, also redheaded, who was holding her hand. Mom, can't I go? Not old enough, Jeannie. You'll be quiet, alright? Percy, you go first. It looked like the oldest boy marched towards platforms 9 and 10. Harry watched, careful not to blink in case he missed it. But just as the boy reached the dividing barrier between the 2 platforms, a large crowd of tourists came swarming in front of him. By the time the last backpack had cleared away, the boy had vanished. Fred, you're next, the plump woman said. I'm not Fred, I'm George, said the boy. Honestly, woman, you kill yourself, old mother. Can't you tell I'm George? Sorry, George, dear. Only joking. I'm Fred. Oh, these were actually my favorite characters, I remember, said the boy, and off he went. His twin called after him to hurry up, and he must have done so, because a second later he was gone. But how had he done it? Now the third brother was walking briskly toward the barrier. He was almost there, and then, quite suddenly, he wasn't anywhere. There was nothing else for it. "Excuse me," Harry said to the plump woman. "Hello, dear," she said. "First time at Hogwarts?" Ron's new, too. She pointed at the last and youngest of her sons. He was tall, thin, and gangling, with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. "Yes," said Harry. The thing is, I don't know how to get into the platform," she said kindly. Harry nodded. "Not to worry," she said. "All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platform 9 and 10. Don't stop and don't be scared. You'll crash into it. That's very important. Best do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous. Go on." "Go now before Ron." Okay," said Harry. He pushed his trolley around and stared at the barrier. It looked very solid. He started to walk toward it. Oh my god. Is there someone? Oh my fucking god! There you go. Can I also ban this person? I reported for spam. There you go. He pushed his trolley around and stared at the barrier. It looked very solid. He started to walk towards it. People jostled him on their way to platforms 9 and 10. Harry walked more quickly. He was going to smash right into that barrier and then he'd be in trouble. Leaning forward to his cart, he broke into a heavy run. The barrier was coming nearer and nearer. He wouldn't be able to stop. The cart was out of control. He was a foot away. He closed his eyes, ready for the crash. It didn't come. He kept on running. He opened his eyes. A scarlet steam engine was waiting next to a platform piled with people. A sign overhead said Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Harry looked behind him and saw a wrought iron archway where the barrier had been, with the words platform 9 and 3/4 on it. He had done it. Yay! Smoke from the engine drifted over the heads of the chattering crowd, while cats of every color wandered here and there between their legs. Owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over the babble and the scraping of heavy trunks. The first few carriages were already packed with students, some hanging out of the window to talk to their families, some fighting over seats. Harry pushed his cart off down the platform in search of an empty seat. He passed a round-faced boy who was saying, "Gran, I lost my toad again." "Oh, Neville," he heard the old woman sigh. "Neville!" A boy with dreadlocks was surrounded by a small crowd. "Give us a look, Lee. Go on." The boy lifted the lid of a box in his arms, and the people around him shrieked and yelled as something inside poked out a long, hairy leg. Harry pressed on through the crowd until he found an empty compartment near the end of the train. He put Headway inside first, and then started to shove and heave his trunk toward the train door. He tried to lift it up the steps, but could hardly raise one end, and twice he dropped it painfully on his foot. Monahan? It was one of the red-haired twins he'd followed through the barrier. "Yes, please," Harry panted. "Oi, Fred, come here and help." "Oh, this is nice." With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was at the last, tucked away in a corner of the compartment. "Thanks," said Harry, pushing his sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" said one of the twins suddenly, pointing at Harry's blinding scar. "Blimey," said the other twin. "Are you—" "He is," said the first twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry. "What?" said Harry. "Harry Potter," chorused the twins. "Oh, him," said Harry. Yes, I am." The two boys gawked at him, and Harry felt himself turning red. Oh, man. Then, to his relief, a voice came floating in through the train's open door. "Fred, George, are you there?" "Coming, Mom." With a last look at Harry, the twins hopped off the train. Harry sat down next to the window, where, half hidden, he could watch the red-haired family on the platform and hear what they were saying. Their mother had just taken out their handkerchief. "Ron, you got something in your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk off the way, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mom, get off," he laughed. Has Ickle Ronnie got something on his nosey?" said one of the twins. "Shut up," said Ron. "Where's Percy?" said their mother. "He's coming now." The eldest boy came striding into sight. He already changed into his billowing black Hogwarts robes. and Harry noticed a shiny red and gold badge on his chest with the letter P on it. "Can't stay long, Mother," he said. "I'm a front. The prefects had got 2 compartments to themselves." "Oh, are you a prefect, Percy?" said one of the twins with an air of great surprise. "You should have said something. We had no idea." "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it," said the other twin. "Once or twice. A minute. All summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy the prefect. "How come Percy gets new robes anyway?" said one of the twins. "Because he's a prefect," said the mother fondly. "Alright, dear, well, have a good term. Send me an owl when you get there." She kissed Percy on the cheek, and he left. Then she turned to the twins. "Now you two, this year, you behave yourself. If you get one more owl telling me you've blown up a toilet or... Blown up a toilet? We've never blown up a toilet." "Great idea though, thanks Mom." "It's not funny." "And look after Ron." "Don't worry, Echo Rumpkins is safe with us." "Shut up," said Ron again. He was almost as tall as the twins already, and his nose was still pink where his mother had rubbed it. "Hey Mom, guess what? Guess who just met on the train?" Harry leaned back quickly so they couldn't see him looking. "You know, that black-haired boy who was near us in the station? Know who he is?" "Who?" "Harry Potter!" Harry heard the little girl's voice. "Oh, Mom, can I go to the train and see him, Mom? Oh, please." "We already seen him, Ginny, and the poor boy isn't something you goggle at in a zoo." "Is he really, Fred? How do you know?" "Ask him. Saw his car. It's really there, like lighting." "Poor dear, no wonder he was alone." I wondered. "He was ever so polite when he asked how to get into the platform." "Never mind that. Do you think he remembers what you know who looks like?" Their mother suddenly became very stern. "I forbid you to ask him, Fred." "No, don't you dare. As though he needs reminding of that in his first day at school." "Alright, keep your hair on." A whistle sounded. "Hurry up," their mother said, and the 3 boys clambered into the train. They leaned out of the window for her to kiss them goodbye, and their younger sister began to cry. "Don't, Jeannie, we'll send you lots of owls. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat." "George, only kidding, Mom." The train began to move. Harry saw the boys' mother waving and their sister, half laughing, half crying, running to keep up with the train until it gathered too much speed. Then she fell back and waved. Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear as the train rounded the corner. Houses flashed past the window. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what he was going to, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind. The door of the compartment slid open and the youngest redhead boy came in. Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. "Everyone else is full." "Oh." Sorry. Harry shook his head and the boy sat down. He glanced at Harry and then looked quickly out of the window, pretending he hadn't looked. Harry saw he still had a black mark on his nose. "Hey Ron," the twins were back. "Listen, you got down the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there." "Right," mumbled Ron. "Harry," said the other twin, "do we introduce ourselves? Fred and George Weasley, and this is Ron, our brother. See you later then." "Bye," said Harry and Ron. The twins slid the compartment door shut behind them. "Are you really Harry Potter?" Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. "Oh, well, I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes," said Ron. "And have you really got, he pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar. Ron stared. "So that's where you know who..." "Yes," said Harry, "but I can't remember it." "Nothing," said Ron eagerly. "Well, I remember a little green light, but nothing else." "Wow," said Ron. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments. Then, as though he had suddenly realized what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. "Are all your family wizards?" asked Harry, who found Ron just as interesting as Ron found him. Yes, I think so," said Ron. "I think Mom's got a second cousin was an accountant, but we never talk about him." "So you must know lots of magic already." The Weasleys are clearly one of the old wizardly families the Pale Boy and Diagon Alley had talked about. "I heard you went to live with Muggles," said Ron. "What are they like?" "Horrible. Well, not all of them. My aunt and uncle and cousin are, though. Wish I had 3 wizard brothers." "5, said Ron. For some reason he was looking gloomy. "I'm the 6th in our family to go to Howard. You could say I got a lot to live up to. Bill and Charlie have already left. Bill was head boy and Charlie was captain of Quidditch. Now Percy's a prefect. Fred and George mess around a lot, but they still get really good marks and everyone thinks they're really funny. Everyone expects... Everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do, it's no big deal because they did it first. Never get anything new either. With 5 brothers, I got Bill's old Robs, Charlie's old Wan, and Percy's old Rat. Ron reached inside his jacket and pulled out a fat grey rat, which was asleep. Rat! So silly. Oh, this is so silly. Sorry, I was checking my phone. Rat! His name's Scabbers and he's useless. He hardly ever wakes up. Percy got an owl from my dad for being made a prefect, but he couldn't enough. I got Scabbers instead. Ron's ears went pink. He seemed to think he said too much because he went back to staring out the window. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he never had any money in his life until a month ago, and he had told Ron so, all about having to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seemed to cheer Ron up. And until Hagrid told me, I didn't know anything about being a wizard, about my parents or Voldemort. Ron gasped. What? Ah, you said the N-word! What? Said Harry. You said the N-word? You said you know whose name? Said Ron, sounding both shocked and impressed. I had thought you, of all people. I'm not trying to be brave or anything, saying the name. Saying the N-word, said Harry. I just never thought you shouldn't. See what I mean? I got lots to learn. I bet. He added, voicing for the first time something that had been worrying him a lot lately. I've been the worst in class. You won't be. There's lots of people who come from Muggle families and they learn quick enough. While they had been talking, the train had carried them out of London. Now they were speeding past fields full of cows and sheep. Oh, it's literally where I live. They were quiet for a time, watching the fields and lanes flick past. Around 12:30, there was a great clattering outside of the corridor, and a smiling, dimpled woman slid back their door and said, "Any of the cart dears." Candy. Harry, who hadn't had any breakfast, leapt to his feet, but Ron's ears went pink again, and he muttered that he bought sandwiches. Harry went out into the corridor. He had never had any money for candy with the Dursleys, and now that he had pockets rattling with gold and silver, he was ready to buy as many Mars bars as he could carry. But the woman didn't have Mars bars. What she did were Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, Drooble's best blowing gum, chocolate frogs, popping pasties, cauldron cakes, licorice ones, and a number of other strange things Harry had never seen in his life. Not wanting to miss anything, he got some of everything and paid the woman 11 silver sickles and 7 bronze nuts. Ron stared as Hagrid butted it all back into the compartment and tipped it into an empty seat. "Hungry, are you?" "Starving," said Harry, taking a large bite of a pumpkin pasty. Ron had taken out a lumpy package and wrapped it. There were 4 sandwiches inside. He pulled one of them apart and said, "She always forgets I don't like corned beef." "Sub you for one of these," said Harry, holding up a pasty. "Go on." "You don't want this, it's all dry," said Ron. "She hasn't got much time." Added quickly, "You know, with 5 of us." "Go on, have a pasty," said Harry, who had never had anything to share before, or indeed anyone to share it with. That's really cute, man. Man, it was a nice feeling, sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all Harry's pasties, cakes, and candies. The sandwiches lay forgotten. "What are these?" Harry asked Ron, holding up a pack of chocolate frogs. "They're not really frogs, are they?" He was starting to feel that nothing will surprise him. "No," said Ron. "But see what the card is? Amazing Agrippa." "What?" "Oh, of course, you want to know. Chocolate frogs have a card inside them, you know, to collect. Famous witches and wizards. I got about 500, but I haven't got Agrippa but Ptolemy." Harry rubbed his chocolate frog and picked up the card. It showed a man's face. He wore half-moon glasses, had a long, crooked nose, and flowing silver hair, beard, and mustache. Underneath the picture was the name Albus Dumbledore. "So this is Dumbledore," said Harry. "Don't tell me you never heard of Dumbledore," said Ron. "Can I have a frog? I may get Agrippa." "Thanks." Harry turned over the card and read, "Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts. Considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of Dragon's Blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and ten-pin bowling. What the fuck is ten-pin bowling? And chamber music. Fucking asylum music. Harry turned the card back over and saw, to his astonishment, that Dumbledore's face had disappeared. He's gone. Well, you can expect him to hang around all day, said Ron. He'll be back. No, I got Morgana egg and I got about 6 of her. Do you want it? You can start collecting. Rose's eyes strayed to the pile of chocolate frogs waiting to be unwrapped. Help yourself, said Harry. But in, the Muggle world, people just stay put in photos. Do they? What, they don't move at all? Ron said in amaze. Weird! Harry stared as Dumbledore sidled back into the picture on his card and gave him a small smile. Ron was more interested in eating the frogs than looking at the famous witches and wizards cards, but Harry couldn't keep his eyes off them. So he had not only Dumbledore and Morgana, but Hanks and Woodcraft, Albert Grunion, Serge Paracelsus, and Merlin. He finally tore his eyes away from the druidess Cleodna, who was scratching her nose to open a bag of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. You want to be careful with those, Ron warned Harry. When they say every flavor, they mean every flavor. Get all the ordinary ones like chocolate and peppermint and marmalade. Oh! What? Was it an explosion? Not me, the fucking neighbors again with their fucking bombs. What the fuck? Alright. But then you can get spinach and liver and tripe. George reckons he had a booger flavor one once. Ron picked up a green bean, looked at it carefully and bit into a corner. Ugh, see? Sprouts. They had a good time eating the every flavor beans. Harry got toast, coconut, baked bean, strawberry, curry, grass, coffee, sardine, and was even brave enough to nibble at the end of a funny grey one Ron wouldn't touch, which turned out to be pepper. The countryside now flying past the window was becoming wilder. The neat fields had gone. Now there were woods, twisting rivers, and dark green hills. Wait, I got messages. Anyway, there was a knock on the door in the compartment. The round-faced boy Harry had passed on platform 9 and 3/4 came in. He looked tearful. Sorry, he said. Have you seen a toad at all? And they shook their heads. He wailed, I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me. He'll turn up, said Harry. Yes, said the boy miserably. Well, if you see him... He left. Don't know why he's so bothered, said Ron. If I bought a toad, I'd lose it as quick as I could. Mind you, I bought Scabbers, so I can't talk. The rat was still snoozing on Ron's lap. I love that rat. The fat rat. Rat. He might have died and you wouldn't know the difference, said Ron in disgust. I tried to turn him yellow yesterday to make him more interesting, but the spell didn't work. I'll show you, look. He rummaged around in his trunks and pulled out a very battered-looking wand. It was chipped in places and something white was glinting at the end. Unicorn hairs nearly poking out. Anyway, he had just raised his wand when the compartment door slid open again. The tallest boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. She had a bossy sort of voice. Lots of bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. We already told him we haven't seen it, said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see it then. She sat down. Ron looked taken aback. Alright. He cleared his throat. Sunshine Daisy's buttermellow turned the stupid fat rat yellow. He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers stayed grey and fast asleep. Are you sure that's a real spell? Said the girl. Well, it's not very good, is it? I tried a few simple spells just for the fact that it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family is magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter. But I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I heard. I learned all of Courser's books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you? She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron, and was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't learned all the course books by heart either. I'm Ron Weasley, Ron Mother. Harry Potter, said Harry. Are you really? Said Hermione. I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Am I? Said Harry, feeling dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I have found out everything I could if it was me, said Hermione. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we better go on and look for Neville's toad. You two had better change, you know. I expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boy with her. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, said Ron. He threw his wand back into his trunk. Stupid spell. George gave it to me, but he knew it was a dud. What house are your brothers in? Asked Harry. Gryffindor, said said Ron. Gloom seemed to be settling on him again. Mom and Dad were in it too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw will be too, but imagine if they put me in Slytherin. That's the house bolt. You know who wasn't? Yeah, said Ron. He flopped back on his seat, looking depressed. I think the ends of Scabbers' whiskers are a bit lighter, said Harry, trying to take Ron's mind off houses. So what do you older explorers do now that they left, anyway? Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he's finished school. Charlie's in Romania studying dragons and Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts, said Ron. Did you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet, but I don't suppose you get that with the Muggles. Someone tried to rob a high-security vault. Harry stared. Really? What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They haven't been caught. My dad says it must have been a powerful dark wizard to get around Gringotts, but they don't think they took anything. That's what's odd. Of course, everyone gets scared when something like this happens in case you know who's behind it. Harry turned his news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you know who was mentioned. He supposed this was all part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. Also, I think I got messages. The fuck am I looking at? Alright. Alright. Let me keep reading here. Okay. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. I don't know any, Harry confessed. What? Ron looked dumbfounded. Oh, you wait. It's the best game in the world. And he was off, explaining all about the 4 balls and the position of the 7 players, describing famous games he'd been to with his brothers and the broomsticks he'd like to get if he had the money. He was just taking Harry through the finer points of the game when the compartment door slid open yet again, but it was Neville, the tallest boy, or Hermione Granger this time. 3 boys entered, and Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. He was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. Is it true? He said. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were thick-set and looked extremely mean. Staring near side of the pale boy. They looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Crabbe and this is Foyle, said the pale boy carelessly, noticing where Harry was looking. My name's Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which may have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have a red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out Some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Uncle Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared in his pale cheeks. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. He's like, wah! He says slowly. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know I was good for them either. You can run with riff-raff like the Weasleys and then Hagrid, and it'll rub off on you. But Harry and Ron stood up. Say that again, Ron said, his face as red as hair. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Unless you get out now, said Harry, more bravely than he felt, because Crabbe and Goyle were a lot bigger than him or Ron. But we won't feel like leaving, do we, boys? We've eaten all our food and you still seem to have some. Goyle reached towards the chocolate frogs next to Ron. Ron leapt forward, but before he'd so much as touched Goyle, Goyle let out a horrible yell. Scabrous the rat was hanging off his finger, sharp little teeth sunk deep into Goyle's knuckle. Crabbe, I guess, and Malfoy backed away as Goyle swung Scabrous round and round, howling, and when Scabrous finally flew off and hit the window, all three of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more dead rats lurking among the sweets, or perhaps they heard footsteps because the second later Hermione Granger had come in. What has been going on? She said, looking at the sweets all over the floor and Ron picking up Scabrous by his tail. Also, I think I have messages again. Fuck. Okay. I think he's been knocked out, Ron said to Harry. He looked closer at Scabbers. No, I don't believe it. He's gone back to sleep. And so he had. You met Malfoy before? Harry explained about their meeting in Diagon Alley. I heard of his family, said Ron darkly. They were some of the first to come back to our side after you-know-who disappeared. Said they'd been bewitched. My dad doesn't believe it. He says Malfoy's father didn't need an excuse to go over to the dark side. He turned to Hermione. Can we help you with something? You better hurry up and put your robes on. I've just been up to the front to ask the conductor and he says we're nearly there. You haven't been fighting, have you? You'll be in trouble before you even get there. Scabbers has been fighting, not us, said Ron, scowling at her. Would you mind leaving while we change? Alright, I only came in here because people outside are behaving very childishly, racing up and down the corridors, said Hermione in a sniffy voice. And you got dirt on your nose, by the way, do you know? Ron glared at her as she left. Harry peered out the window. It was getting dark. He could see mountains and forests under a deep purple sky. The train did seem to be slowing down. Hermione is really funny. She's like, hey, you know this and that? Anyway, you got something on your face. Also, I'm leaving. It's really funny. Oh my god. Okay, this message. Hi. You cool. Thank you. I'm just reading. I'm trying to learn how to write better, so I'm just reading books for like beginners and stuff. So I guess Harry Potter. Here Ron took off their jackets and pulled on their long black robes. Ron's were a bit short for him, but you could see his sneakers underneath them. A voice echoed through the train. We'll be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage in the train. It will be taken to the school separately. Yeah, I am Krolik. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of their sweets and joined the crowd thronging to the corridor. The train slowed right down and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the door and out onto a tiny, dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. First years over here. Alright there, Harry. Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Come on, follow me. Any more first years? Mind your step now. First years, follow me. Oh. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them that Harry thought there must be thick trees there. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toad, sniffed once or twice. You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec, Hagrid called over his shoulder. Just round this bend here. There was a loud whoa. The narrow path had opened suddenly to the edge of a great black lake, perched atop a high mountain on the other side. Its windows sparkling in the starry sky was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more a photo to a boat, Harry recalled, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed into their boat by Neville and Hermione. Everyone in, shouted Harry, who had a boat to himself. Right then, forward! And the fleet of little boats moved off all at once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up at the great castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads down, yelled Hagrid as the first boats reached the cliff. They all bent their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivy that hid a wide opening of the cliff face. In the cliff face. Yeah, that's nice. They were carried along a dark tunnel, which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle, until they reached a kind of underground harbor, where they clambered out into rocks and pebbles. "Oh, you there! Is this your toad?" said Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people came out of them. "Trevor!" cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hand. Then they clambered up a passage in the rock after Hagrid's lamp, coming at last into smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. "Everyone's here? You there? Still got your toad?" Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. Well, I think it's good to leave it here in chapter 7. I'll finish the stream now. How long have we been reading? Oh, 3 hours. More than 3 hours. Okay. That's enough reading for today. I'll keep reading probably one of these days. I want to learn how to write better, so I think Harry Potter was good. Someone told me that they start easy to read and they get difficult the more it goes on. So it raises in difficulty, which is perfect for me to learn. Alright? So I'll be on my way. I'll be actually making lunch or something because I'm hungry. It's 6 p.m. and I haven't eaten anything yet. Alright? I better go now. And I'll see everyone later. You know, you can come to my server, the hujole server, whichever you like. Hujole server is a lot more active, I can tell you that. But mine is a lot more smaller. So just choose whatever you wish. You can go to both. It's whatever. Alright? Same people are in the both servers. So, I'll see you later. I'll be just doing my own thing. And, well, have a nice day. See you later.